Chapter 1284. Invitations to the Martial Alliance Conference were being sent to the various provinces and cities. The scale of the conference, and the number of invitations received, could be said to be unprecedented. It seemed to be jointly issued by all the major sects. But in fact, it was because of the Sect of all times and Jun Changshao that they decided to go. After all, this man had made the 9 great martial emperors thank him in the sky. They could ignore others, but they had to respect him. Even being invited was a supreme honor. To be honest, Jun Changshao's current prestige was not inferior to the 9 great martial emperors. However, while the world was discussing the Martial Alliance Conference, Go Sheng was already on his way to the Southern Sea Crossing State. Don't misunderstand, he was just there to deliver the invitations. After all, the 3 overseas states and the mainland had the same roots. Naturally, he wanted them to participate. He had no other intentions. Couldn't he leave this matter to the sect's higher-ups? Did he have to do it personally? He had no choice. The ancient warship was fast. Moreover, they needed time to travel from the Southern Sea Crossing State to the mainland. They might not be able to make it in 2 months. Therefore, Jun Changshao decided to pick them up personally. This was definitely an extremely high treatment. If it was a mainland martial artist, they would not be able to enjoy it. Southern Sea Crossing State. Qixing Palace. The ancient warship stopped steadily at the martial arts arena. The surrounding disciples all widened their eyes and were shocked. A ship, it could fly. This was not the main point. The main point was that Jun Changshao smiled and said, "Palace Master Qiu, are you touched that I personally came to pick you up on a ship?" The Qixing Palace Master, who had the green dragon crescent blade on his neck, had an ugly expression. He was touched, but he did not dare to move. At the edge of the martial arts arena, the 7 grand elders all fell to the ground in pain, holding their stomachs. Obviously, they had a conflict with Go Sheng and were beaten up. They could not be blamed. The main reason was that Jun Changshao came to the Qixing Palace and directly asked the palace master to go to the mainland. Anyone with the temper and courage would not be able to resist. Therefore, the 7-person formation was instantly broken. The disciples of the Sect of all times had shown them what true strength was. The patriarch of the Sect of all times had shown them what true invincibility was. The formation that he was so proud of was not only broken, but also his temper and unyielding character. After all, those things could not be eaten with rice. "Please." Jun Changshao withdrew his saber and said indifferently, "AI." Palace head Qiu sighed and walked towards the warship. "Of course." Just as he boarded the ship, Jun Changshao added, "You don't have to pay for my journey here, but you'll have to pay for my departure. 100,000 spirit stones per person. Since this is a small business, no bargaining is allowed." Palace head Qiu's mouth twitched violently. This guy must be here to blackmail my Qixing Palace. He couldn't say that. After all, the ship also consumed energy, and it was only right to charge for it. Although it was a little expensive, it was worth it to reach the continent so quickly. 7. Jun Changshao said, "You guys can go up as well." Jun Patriarch. "I alone am enough to represent the Qixing Palace." When the green dragon crescent blade was placed on his neck again, Palace head Qiu immediately changed his words. 7 grand elders, please board the ship quickly." Therefore, the palace head and 7 grand elders of the most powerful sect in the South Sea Crossing State were invited onto the ancient warship. The total fee for 8 heads was 800,000 spirit stones. My ship can accommodate at least 1,000 people. On the way to the other sects, Jun Changshao thought to himself, 100,000 per person? Doesn't that mean it's over 100 million? The system said, "This is a real robber." Jun Changshao would not be so greedy. He had always pursued a rational fee, so he charged according to the level of the sect. For example, those ordinary martial artists only charged 10,000 spirit stones per head. Swoosh. After circling around the South Sea Crossing State, the ancient warship carried hundreds of elders and higher-ups of various sects to the West Ocean spiritual state. What a fast speed! I never thought that I would one day cross the endless ocean on a ship in the sky. The 10,000 spirit stones are worth it. The elders of various sects gathered on the deck and looked at the vast ocean below. Feeling the extreme speed, they were all shocked. Palace head Qiu and the 7 Grand Elders were also shocked, and even realized that the speed of the ship was much faster than their flying speed. However, they thought that it would be a great loss if they did not have any special experience, after paying 100,000 spirit stones. The super performance of the ancient warship shocked the major sects in the South Sea crossing state, and they no longer cared about the spirit stones. This was Jun Changxiao's brilliance. He was clearly extorting money, but in the end, it made the people who were cheated feel that it was not a loss. West Ocean Spiritual State, Union of 10,000 Immortals. When the ancient warship once again hovered above the martial arts field, Alliance Master Han hurriedly led a group of higher-ups to welcome it. When they learned that they were going to participate in an event on the continent, they immediately agreed, and even obediently handed over the spirit stones. Their familiarity and self-awareness was because Jun Changxiao had been there before. As the saying went, unfamiliar the first time, familiar the second time. When Go Sheng went to the South Sea crossing state again, the Qixing Palace would definitely be as enthusiastic as Alliance Master Han, and there would not be any conflict. After receiving hundreds of influential elders in the West Ocean Spirit State, the ancient warship sailed to the East Ocean's Fishery State, and invited the emperors of the 3 empires and powerful martial artists onto the ship. There were many people, almost 3,000 of them. These martial artists represented the entire 3 states overseas. Everyone. On the way to the continent, Jun Changxiao said seriously, because the Martial Alliance Conference will be held in 2 months. After arriving at the Sect of all times, I'll arrange for all of you to stay in Iron Bone Town at the foot of the mountain. Please take care of your own food and accommodation. Everyone's expressions became interesting. This warship was so fast that it would probably take less than a day to reach the continent. Are you purposely tricking us into spending money in that Iron Bone Town? Whoosh! The ancient warship traveled at high speed from the Sky-Ocean Line and arrived at the Qingyang County of the southwest Yangzhou in a few hours. Dear guests, there's a situation inside. Auntie Wang stood at the entrance of the Yunlai Inn to welcome them. She only said after all the elders of the 3 states had entered, "Brat, why did you go out to get guests for me instead of taking care of the faction?" Auntie Wang, Jun Changxiao said in a low voice, "These are all important figures from overseas, and they will be staying here for more than 2 months." He paused for a moment and made a gesture of rolling up money. "Do you understand what I mean? If the experts from the 3 states who entered the inn saw this, they would be sure that this guy was purposely tricking them into spending money." Fortunately, Auntie Wang was a serious businesswoman and did not raise the price. She charged them according to the normal standard, and even provided them with breakfast for free. The Iron Bone Town was now the most prosperous market in the southwest Yangzhou, because it sold all kinds of high-quality resources related to martial arts. Since the experts from the 3 states who had lived overseas for a long time were here, they would not be cooped up in their rooms all day. Therefore, when they had nothing to do, they would walk around together until they could not control their money after entering the Tang Pharmacy. Patriarch. The next day, Yuan Feng came to report, "The people you brought are really generous. They spent tens of millions of spirit stones in the Tang Pharmacy alone yesterday." Chapter 1285. The big shots from the 3 overseas states were indeed rich. They could be said to be extravagant. The main reason was that the pills sold in Tangji Pill Workshop were too amazing, especially the healing pills that could quickly heal injuries. It was right to invite them in advance because it would bring a considerable profit to Iron Bone Town. It's about time. Jun Changxiao lay on the chair in the study with his feet on the table and said, "Just wait for the disciples to be recruited and promoted to a first-rate sect, then hold the Martial Alliance Conference." Right. I have to inform the 9 great martial emperors. The others could choose not to come, but the 9 great martial emperors had to come because they represented the top power of the falling star continent. Jun Changxiao did not go to rest and hurriedly flew out of the sect. Then, he released his spiritual senses to determine the location of the 9 great martial emperors, and went to inform them one by one. "Jun Patriarch, please rest assured. In a beautiful place, the spirit emperor, who was cultivating in a secret room, said, "When the time comes, I will definitely participate." After the other 8 great martial emperors received the news, they also expressed that they would participate and secretly said, "The place where I cultivate in seclusion is extremely hidden. How did he find it?" After everything was settled, Jun Changshao returned to the sect and saw Lu Qianqian teaching a female disciple who had just entered the sect. A gratified smile appeared on his face. In fact, he had long seen that this woman had already regarded the sect as her home. But because of her personality, she always seemed out of place. This time, after going to the Taixian cave mansion, it could be said that she had changed from the inside out. Senior sister, was the one who just walked past the patriarch? Yes. Oh my God, so handsome. But why doesn't he have hair? Jun Changshao, who walked to the main hall, almost fell from the top. Then, he angrily walked to the back mountain and entered the space-time secret realm without hesitation. When he came out again, his hair had already reached his waist. A month later, under the leadership of the Ning brothers, the disciple recruitment began again. Because of the previous publicity, there were more young boys and girls participating in the assessment than before. Among them was the world-defying Sacred Sect's young patriarch, Ao Wushuang. Of course, after he left the sect, his identity as the young patriarch was gone. Now he was nothing more than an ordinary examinee. Sect of all times. After walking down the long stairs, Ao Wushuang stopped at the entrance of the mountain. Looking at the red gate with the plaque, "The strongest sect of all time," Ao Wushuang clenched his fist and said, "I'm here. I will definitely pass the test." Ao Wushuang, young master Ao, right? Ning Duxing called him over and said, "Because of your special identity, you need to go through a special assessment arranged by the patriarch. Please enter the sect of all times first." Special assessment? Ao Wushuang frowned slightly, got up, walked into the sect, and stopped proudly in the martial arts arena. In front of the main hall, Jun Changshao casually placed his hands on the railing and said with a smile, "You're here? Jun Patriarch." Ao Wushuang puffed out his chest and said, "Please begin the test." After being brutally thrashed by Yi Xingqian at the Dragon Tiger battle for hegemony, he had come to realize his limits. However, his pride and arrogance still remained. They were young people after all. As long as he was not blindly self-righteous, it was normal for him to be arrogant. Jun Changshao said, "Since you can participate in the Dragon Tiger battle for hegemony, it means that you have the aptitude and cultivation. Therefore, the test will not follow the tradition but snap." He snapped his fingers. Stomp, stomp. Dozens of disciples of the sect of all times walked into the martial arts arena and lined up in a row, exuding an unyielding aura. Jun Changshao said, "You can choose any 3 and fight 3 rounds. As long as you don't fall after 15 minutes in each round, you will pass the test." So simple? So simple. Ao Wushuang's eyes flashed with a trace of astonishment. Then he looked at the group of disciples cautiously and said, "They must be very strong?" They were not very strong. They only sent out Li Tiantian, Sima Zhongda, Lin Jiangheng, and other non-core disciples. Others might not know, but the readers knew that this was definitely the second strongest team of the sect of all times. No matter who that guy chose, it was destined to be a tragedy. "Jun Patriarch," Ao Wushuang said solemnly, "can I choose Yi Xingqian?" Jun Changshao said, "Why choose him?" "Because..." Ao Wushuang clenched his fists and said, "I will get back up from where I fell." "Okay," Jun Changshao said loudly. "I will fulfill your request. Xingqian, come out and receive your guest." Main peak. In the martial arts arena, Yi Xingqian walked over with a cold and arrogant expression. His eyebrows were full of displeasure. He was unhappy. He was extremely unhappy. Because a piece of trash who was defeated in the Dragon Tiger battle for hegemony, and whose cultivation did not improve much, actually took the initiative to challenge him. "Am I very weak? Am I very free?" Seeing Yi Xingqian walk over, Ao Wushuang's forehead gradually became sweaty. His hands and legs were trembling, and he could not bear to look back on the past. Night Emperor had traumatized him, but why did he still want to challenge him? because he wanted to break the barrier and get back on his feet. Come on. Ao Wushuang summoned his courage and shouted. Boom! As soon as he finished speaking, Yi Xingchen strode over and slammed his hand down on the other party's face. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others shook their heads helplessly. Boom! 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 The explosion sounded in the martial arts arena. Spiritual energy rippled out, blowing away the surrounding pebbles and sand. After a few minutes, Yi Xingchen finally stopped and threw Ao Wushuang to the edge of the arena, as if he was throwing trash. He said calmly, Patriarch, can I go and cultivate now? Go. Yi Xingchen left. Wait a minute. However, before he left the arena, Ao Wushuang's weak voice came. He struggled to stand up and said with his head covered in blood, I haven't lost yet. Li Qingyang and the others were surprised. He was beaten so badly by his junior brother, but he could still stand up. Boom! Suddenly, the sound of an explosion was heard again. Yi Xingchen appeared in front of Ao Wushuang and punched him in the abdomen. Plop! Under the powerful explosion, Ao Wushuang was blown away and fell outside the arena. He knelt on the ground in pain and vomited blood. I lost. I still lost. Ao Wushuang leaned back with a hideous face. He was unwilling to admit defeat, but he knew that the gap between him and the guy was too big. He would be lucky if he could withstand a few attacks, let alone win. His vision suddenly darkened. Jun Changxiao walked in front of him and said, When you challenge Yi Xingchen, you have to fall from the same place you fell from. Ao Wushuang forced a smile and said, I don't regret it, Qingyang. Jun Changxiao said, Take him to the medical peak for treatment. Yes, sir. Li Qingyang ran over and carried the wounded Ao Wushuang on his shoulder. However, when he was about to leave, he heard the patriarch add, Don't forget to distribute the Sect's handbook and uniforms. Understood. Li Qingyang whispered. Junior brother, hurry up and thank the patriarch. Thank you, patriarch. Ao Wushuang said while suppressing his injuries. Perhaps he was in a good mood, he fainted. The recruitment for this month ended smoothly. As the requirements were lowered, there were as many as 5,000 to 6,000 new disciples. Jun Changxiao first exchanged the excess contribution points for various martial arts resources, then rubbed his hands and said, When we have 100,000 new disciples, the Sect's promotion to first class and the Martial Alliance Conference can be held at the same time. The system sighed. Unknowingly, the Sect has grown from one person to almost 100,000. Time passes so quickly. Yes, Jun Changxiao said excitedly. The soulbound bomb is finally going to be defused. Chapter 1286. Jun Changxiao made up his mind. The Sect certification and the Martial Alliance General Assembly would be held on the same day. Everyone in the continent would witness a miracle that belonged to the Sect of all times. There was only a month left until that day. There were only slightly more than 3,000 disciples left. Qingyang, Jun Changxiao said, Build an open-air venue of the highest standard near the arena of life and death, as soon as possible to hold the Martial Alliance General Assembly. Yes, Li Qingyang accepted the order. He led his fellow disciples and page to work. Just like that, all kinds of construction materials were transported over near the arena of life and death. The main platform, secondary platform, and spectator stands were laid out. A huge venue gradually took shape. Zhen Dejuan and his formation hall were not idle either. They were actively setting up a projection array and connected it to City Lord Han's projection array. When the time came, the Sect's promotion and the Martial Alliance General Assembly would be broadcasted live from all angles. Dojo Master Yi. As soon as he sat down in the certification hall, Jun Changxiao went straight to the point. 1 month later, please certify the Sect of all times. Yi Tianxing, who was about to drink tea, froze. The Sect of all times was certified again? Wouldn't it be first-rate then? Master Yi could no longer stay calm. He was so excited that he wanted to lie down. Fortunately, he was no longer the dojo master who would go into shock easily. Jun Changxiao had shocked him too much. He could already adapt to it. However, when he thought about how he had witnessed the growth of a 9th-rate sect into a first-rate sect in just 10 years, it was definitely a great honor. June Patriarch. Yi Tianqing cupped his fists and said, "You and your sect of all times are the legends of Southwest Yangzhou." If any martial artist in Southwest Yangzhou heard this, they would not hesitate to express their agreement. Dojo Master Yi. Jun Changshao said, "My sect and I want to be the legends of the falling star continent." This? Yi Tianqing's mouth twitched. It turned out that Jun Patriarch had such a huge ambition. However, whether he could become the legends of the falling star continent still required the recognition of all martial artists on the continent. Tianyuan Prison Pagoda. Zhao Daodu came to the prison as usual. He first put down the food, and then sat down on the warm and cold wooden board. He said, "Brother, our sect is about to break the 100,000 disciple mark. Haven't you thought it through yet?" "I've thought it through," Dai Lu said. "I have let go of everything." He no longer hated Jun Changshao, nor did he hate Yi Xingchen. He would rather be locked up in prison for the rest of his life. This fellow had seen through everything. He gave off a Buddha-like feeling. Unfortunately, his cultivation did not improve, and he was still the same as before. In fact, without the help of the soul race, this fellow was ultimately just an ordinary person. He was unlike Jun Changshao, who relied on the system to nurture his aptitude. Even without the cheat, he could still become stronger. It was just a matter of time. Since you've let go of everything, why not start all over again? Zhao Daodu asked. "I'm tired." Dai Lu shook his head. "I only want to spend the rest of my life in prison." Zhao Daodu said, "You've missed the opportunity to become a powerhouse time and time again, but you've always stuck to your principles. This is admirable." He did not try to persuade Dai Lu, because he had really let go of everything. Creak. The prison door closed again, and the environment turned dark. Dai Lu remained sitting cross-legged. His thoughts returned to the past, and his ears rang. "Young man, I see that you have a unique physique. You're a one-in-a-million martial arts genius. You can consider joining my Iron Bone sect as a disciple. Your future achievements will definitely be limitless." Sigh. He shook his head and sighed. If he had made the right choice back then, it would probably be a different scene now. In the martial arts world where lifespans could easily reach hundreds of years, a month was really short. It was so short that it passed in the blink of an eye. There were still 5 days until the Martial Alliance Conference. At this moment, clans, sects, and itinerant cultivators from all over the world had arrived at Ironbone Town. As there were too many people, it could not accommodate them for the time being. They could only stay in Qingyang Town, or Qingyang City in batches. Forces or martial artists, who had a good relationship with the sect of all times, had already stayed in the sect in advance. For example, the AI family, or experts like City Master Han. "Qingyang," Jun Changshao asked, "is Palace Master Shi not here?" The sect of all times had 2 allies. The Tsongshan sect had arrived long ago, but Miaohua Palace was still nowhere to be seen. Li Qingyang said, "Not yet." Oh, Jun Changshao did not think too much about it. After all, she was the leader of a sect. Perhaps she was too busy to leave, or she might have delayed her journey. Invincible. Swoosh. He stepped out of the hall, put his hands on his temples, and stroked them up elegantly. He said, "Open the gate." Creaky Woody opened the tightly shut red gate, and the fresh morning air rushed in from outside. Today was the recruitment day, at the beginning of the month. Because it concerned the recruitment of 100,000 disciples, Jun Changshao decided to take charge of the entire process. He was wearing a very formal sect uniform, and a very serious expression appeared on his face. It made AI Shangyao, Ma Yuntung, and the others feel the temperament and aura that a top sect patriarch should have. It's open. The gate is open. At the foot of the mountain, the eyes of the young men and women who came to participate in the assessment flashed with excitement. They could not wait to climb up the stairs to the gate. TSK. The martial artists who came to participate in the Martial Alliance Conference came to join in the fun. When they saw the candidates, they all exclaimed, "They are all young people with good potential." The higher-ups of the second and third-rate sects were envious. If these young men and women came to their own sects, they would not need to take the assessment at all. They could pass right away. It could not be helped. The sect of all times came out of nowhere and made the other sects completely lose their competitiveness. They could only pick up the things that others did not want. Young men and women. Suddenly, Jun Changxiao's voice came from the gate. Follow the stairs and come up. Only by not being eliminated can you enter the second step of changing your destiny. Although Go Sheng was acting like a patriarch now, he was not putting on airs. However, his words were extremely shocking. It's Jun Patriarch. He's standing at the gate. Go. Go. Therefore, the nearly 10,000 young people who gathered at the foot of the mountain to participate in the assessment took the first step of changing their destiny. Huff huff. The gravity array was activated instantly, bringing pressure to the candidates at different levels. Everyone had heard that the Sect of All Times assessment was very strict. Those who dared to try were mostly capable. So in the end, there were actually 7,000 to 8,000 people who succeeded. The corners of the mouths of the experts who witnessed the entire assessment twitched violently. More than 2,000 young people who were sent down the mountain until they collapsed seemed to have good potential and cultivation. When they came to their own sects, they were at least inner sect disciples. In the end, they were eliminated in the first round of the Sect of All Times. This was really comparisons were odious. The Sect of All Times assessment process was very mature. Participants only needed to complete the various tests to become an inner sect disciple. Therefore, Jun Changxiao only needed to watch the entire process and did not need to do anything. In the end, after a few rounds of assessment, there were more than 4,000 people who passed the assessment. This forced him to choose personally, because there were not that many spots. Ding! Sect members, 9723-110-0000. Ding! Sect members, 9867-610-0000. Ding! Sect members, 9999-910-0000. Patriarch. Just as Jun Changxiao was seriously thinking about who to choose as the last disciple, Xiao Daoda's voice sounded in his ear. Dai Lu has thought it through. He wants to join the Sect of All Times. Chapter 1287. Ninth Floor Prison. Not only did Dai Lu stand up, but he also used a razor to shave off the last strand of beard on his face. He looked dozens of years younger in an instant. During this period of time, he had thought a lot. If he were to use words to describe his thoughts, it would take at least a chapter or two, so he didn't say much. It was just that he really thought it through. Xiao Daoda was very happy. The patriarch didn't order him to convince Dai Lu, but he still came over to chat whenever he was free. Maybe it was because they had been together for a long time and developed a relationship that surpassed that of a cellmate. Thought it through. Jun Changxiao walked in from outside. Hearing Xiao Daoda's words, he was a little stunned. After all, this stubborn person had planned to be locked up until he died. He didn't expect him to think it through and be willing to join the Sect of All Times. Dai Lu said, I beg Jun Patriarch to take me in. Brother Green Scarf, who had always been unyielding, had finally put down his pride and let go of everything. Why? Because it was only on the surface. He still had dreams in his heart. Actually, after Dai Lu put down his prejudice against Jun Changxiao, he had changed. He no longer stubbornly stuck to something and knew how to be flexible. Everyone wanted to live the way they wanted to, but in the cruel reality, they had to change themselves. My Sect of All Times doesn't need you. If you want to join, you have to give me a satisfactory reason. Jun Changxiao said calmly. If you don't want to join, then you don't want to join. If you want to join, then you join. What do you take me for? What do you take the Sect of All Times for? You have to know that the Prince of Deshang, who was recently accepted, entered with millions of level 9 spirit stones. The system side. This is the benefit of bringing money into the sect. Occasionally there will be scenes. Look at those who didn't spend money. Many of them don't even have names. Isn't it sad? Isn't it realistic? Plop. Suddenly, Dai Lu bent his knees and knelt down. He said with a serious face, Jun Patriarch once said that my bones are extraordinary, and that I'm a 1 in a million martial arts prodigy. Did he say that? Jun Changxiao couldn't remember. The system said, yes, chapter 1 first sentence. Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched. Back then, it was just a casual remark from a disciple, yet he actually remembered it. Gosheng probably wouldn't have thought that it was precisely because he had casually said it that not only did Dai Lu remember it, but it also made him remember it in his heart. Today, he was able to think it through because of that sentence. Are you willing to become the lowest disciple in the sect? I'm willing. Are you willing to clean the toilets every day? I'm willing. Are you willing to do the most tiring work? I'm willing. Jun Changxiao asked 3 times, and Dai Lu decisively answered 3 times. Although he already knew how to be flexible, he still retained his character of doing things as long as he had decided on something. Even if he were to run into a wall, he would not turn back. Shua. Jun Changxiao took out the entry form and said, Name. Dai Lu. Gender. Male. Age. 28. Pa. The seal of the sect of all times was stamped on it, and a notification sounded in his ears. Ding. Sect member count. 10000100000. After activating the system until today, Jun Changxiao had finally completed the basic requirements of the main mission, which was to expand the sect to 100,000 members. The martial artist recruited from the first sentence of the first chapter. Although he did not become number 2, he became number 100,000. The first side character in the beginning became the last disciple required by the main mission, which could be considered as a full stop for the main character to build the strongest sect. In the past, when the number of disciples reached the maximum, the sect mission would be triggered. However, after Dai Lu entered the sect, there was only a notification that the number of disciples had increased, and there were no follow-up actions. Why? Jun Changxiao asked. The system said, because the host has already met the requirements of the main mission, there is no need to trigger the sect mission. That means, Jun Changxiao said, I'm about to clear the level. Yes. The system said. Time passed so quickly. Why are you suddenly so sad? Jun Changxiao said. Because, the system said bitterly, when the host completes the main mission, I will also have completed my mission, and can retire with peace of mind. Ha ha ha. Jun Changxiao raised his head and laughed. You despicable guy who always roasts me. Are you finally going to scram? Damn. I've been with you for so long, and we've gone through danger after danger together, and you still have the nerve to laugh. Are you even human? This is a joyous occasion, why can't I laugh? Gosheng laughed even louder, but after laughing for a while, he could not laugh anymore, and then said seriously, retiring with peace of mind means, I'm just a support tool. When the host completes the main mission, I will also be erased like the soul bomb. The system said. Jun Changxiao fell silent. Although he hated this roasting maniac, if he suddenly had to leave him one day, he would probably be very reluctant. Haha. The system laughed. If the host doesn't complete the main mission, I can still live for a while, there's no need to be so sad. Dojo Mastery. Jun Changxiao said loudly. 5 days later, I'll be certified as a Sect of All Times member. 4 days before the start of the convention, projection arrays at the level of cities and towns across the Starfall continent appeared one after another. Close to 10,000 formation masters participated, actively adjusting the equipment to ensure that no problems would occur during the live broadcast. 3 days before the start of the convention, Li Qingyang and the others began to decorate the venue that had been built long ago. As the martial artists participating were all reputable figures in the continent, it had to be grand and solemn. 2 days before the start of the convention, Shi Jingxian arrived late with the sect's higher-ups, and was warmly welcomed by Jun Changxiao, which made many sect elders envious, and made them even more convinced that the two of them had a close relationship. 1 day before the start of the convention, the 9 great martial emperors flew across the sky. Out of absolute respect, they consciously climbed up Ironbone Mountain on foot, causing the first big commotion since the Martial Alliance convention. Oh my god. So the 9 great martial emperors were also invited. This is definitely the grandest event to be held since the ancient times. The 8th day of the new year. It was suitable for marriage, travel, and sacrifice. Ding Xingwang, Elder Wei, and the other sect's higher-ups stood outside the main hall, while the disciples led by Lu Qianqian stood on the training field. To the martial artists who had already entered the venue, the Martial Alliance convention was going to be held today. However, to the Sect of all times, today was the day the Sect was officially certified as a first-class sect and become the top in the continent. Senior brother, Li Fei said nervously, I want to go to the side account. Su Xiaomo rolled his eyes and said, You've already gone 5 times. Hold it in. Don't be a burden during the certification. Li Fei was not the only one who was excited, nervous and perturbed. Li Qingyang was the same as well. After all, the sect was finally going to reach the peak after 10 years of hard work. Swoosh. At this moment, Jun Changxiao walked out of the main hall in a suave manner. He walked past the higher-ups and disciples one by one, and then went straight to the entrance of Xingxiang Mountain. He raised his right hand and said, Follow me to the venue and let the sect become a first-class sect in the world. Yes. Their voices shook the earth and broke the sky. Click. Click. Li Tian, who was lying in front of the main door, decisively pressed the camera button. A 48 million high-definition wide-angle photo of the patriarch's robes fluttering in the wind, walking suavely, with the higher-ups and disciples following closely behind. The background was the main hall with the plaque, Ironbone Mountain. Chapter 1288. At the foot of the mountain, there was a large open-air venue. Sect leaders and reputable experts from the Falling Star continent, and even the 3 overseas provinces were gathered there. They were anxiously waiting for the Sect of all times, the organizer of the Martial Alliance convention. He's here. Jun Patriarch is here. Suddenly someone shouted loudly. In the venue where hundreds of thousands of heroes from all over the world gathered, spiritual thoughts surged toward the northern entrance. They saw the Sect of all times upper echelons and disciples, led by Jun Changxiao, walking toward them. They held their heads high. They were firm and unyielding. He's so handsome. A smile appeared on Shi Jingshuan's face as she sat in the VIP seat. After careful consideration, Zhang Sun Fanghua and Leng Xingyue decided to forcefully inform the palace master, who was in closed-door cultivation, to ask if she was coming to the Martial Alliance convention. The reply they received was that she would come out of closed-door cultivation and head over. It had been a while since they last met. This bespectacled woman was more elegant and charming than before. Her realm seemed to have improved significantly as well. Xingyao, Zhen Dejuan, who was backstage, sent a voice transmission. Shangguan Xingyao nodded and immediately merged into the formation. She instantly established a connection with the other projection hubs. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. In an instant, in every city and town in the Falling Star continent, the barriers that were initially closed were all opened. The scene of Jun Changxiao leading his disciples into the venue appeared. It's starting. It's finally starting. The ordinary people and martial artists who had heard the news and came to watch in advance could not take their eyes off it. Thud. Under everyone's gazes, Jun Changxiao stopped at the high platform in the center of the venue. He leaned his mouth close to the microphone he had prepared in advance and said in a clear voice, We sincerely welcome friends from all over the world to participate in the Martial Alliance conference sponsored by the Eternal Sect. The mouths of everyone in the continent twitched. Was he going to advertise again with such a familiar opening? Since he had already recruited 100,000 disciples, Jun Changxiao naturally would not be thick-skinned and continue to advertise. He said seriously, Before the Martial Alliance convention begins, I'd like everyone to be witnesses. Witnesses. Surprise appeared on the faces of all the big shots. At this moment, the upper echelons and disciples of the Sect of all times were already standing neatly below the stage where the Patriarch was speaking. Of course, they could not bring all the 100,000 people here. They only picked 10,000 elites. Jun Changxiao raised his microphone and said, Witness the Sect of all times becoming a first-class sect today. What? The Sect of all times, Star of all times, is becoming a first-class sect. But it hasn't been promoted to a sect for a while now? When Goshing's voice was transmitted to the Falling Star continent through the light screen, everyone's eyes widened. Their hearts were in turmoil. On the contrary, City Lord Han and the others who were sitting in the VIP area weren't too surprised. After all, in their opinion, the Eternal Sect's strength was definitely top-notch. Jun Changshao turned around and extended his hand. Thank you, City Lord Xie, Master AI, Master Han, Holy Spring Sect, Lily Holy Sect, Murdering God Temple, Murderous Demon Sect, and other friends and forces. Without your support and difficulties, the sect of all times would not be as strong as it is today. Xie Guangquan, AI Shangyao, and the others smiled with pride in their eyes. They were friends of the sect of all times, and had witnessed the rise of a legend. The Murderous God Temple Master and the Patriarch of the Murderous Demon Sect were ashamed. They were enemies of Jun Changshao, and had once made things difficult for the sect on its path to growth. Of course, Jun Changshao continued. I'd also like to thank the Tsang Mountain Sect and Miaohua Palace for forming an alliance with the sect of all times when it was still weak. Shi Jingxian blushed. Jun Patriarch was looking at her, and everyone else was looking at her. She was very shy and did not know what to do. The Tsang Mountain Sect Master's face was also red. He was not shy but ashamed. Although they had formed an alliance with the sect of all times, they had always been under their protection. Yes, in front of the current sect of all times, not to mention fourth or fifth-rate sects. Even first or second-rate sects were not worth mentioning. However, Jun Changshao was still very grateful, because these two sects had shown their true colors in times of adversity. There are too many people to thank, Jun Changshao said. Jun did not mention them one by one. Next, let's welcome Yi Tianxing, the head of the certification hall, to certify the sect of all times as a first-rate sect. The venue was silent. After all, this was an award ceremony, not a concert. What kind of applause was needed? When the atmosphere was extremely awkward, Yi Tianxing had already appeared on the stage. Then, he picked up the microphone awkwardly and forgot the script he had prepared in advance. After a long time, he squeezed out a sentence. Begin the certification. The minimum requirement to be certified as a first-rate sect was 100,000 disciples. After that, there was no more after that. Because as soon as he finished speaking, the higher-ups and disciples of the sect of all times no longer suppressed their cultivation and released their true realm. Whoosh whoosh, whoosh whoosh whoosh. In an instant, the entire venue was shrouded in the aura of powerful cultivation. The elders of the various sects were so shocked that they stood up one after another, their eyes flashing with shock. Even the 9 great martial emperors sitting at the highest point widened their eyes. Oh my God! Spirit Emperor said in disbelief. The lowest cultivation among these 10,000 people is Martial King. That was right. The disciples brought by Jun Changshao were all Martial Kings. Therefore, when they released their realm aura together, it immediately caused the second big commotion before and after the Martial Alliance convention began. One must know that in the entire Falling Star continent, even if all the factions and itinerant cultivators gathered, they might not be able to gather 10,000 Martial Kings. The sect of all times alone had so many. One could imagine how shocking it was. It's not just Martial Kings, Emperor Jing said. There are also 500 Wu Huang and 50 half-sages. He couldn't continue, because after roughly seeing the strength of the sect of all times disciples, he was so shocked that he was speechless. How did they cultivate this? Unbelievable, unbelievable. The other martial emperors' mouths twitched violently. Coincidentally, the camera was still pointed at them, so all the martial artists on the continent saw it. They were all wondering what could make the 9 great martial emperors show such exaggerated expressions. Whoosh whoosh, whoosh whoosh whoosh. The cultivation realm and aura of the sect of all times disciples were still released. Every one of them held their heads high and pushed their unyielding aura to the extreme, becoming the most dazzling existence in the venue. A smile appeared on Jun Changshao's face. After years of development and hard work, the sect of all times had grown from a weak chicken to a strong one. Today, they could finally shout in front of all the martial artists in the world. In this world, who can compete with my sect of all times for glory? Not now, not in the future. This was because in less than 10 years, they had created a top-notch sect that had martial kings everywhere and Wu Huang as many as dogs. It was destined that no one would be able to surpass them. Yi Tianxing, who was standing at the side, picked up the microphone and said, I originally planned to go through the certification process, but now. He paused and smiled bitterly. It seems like there's no need for that. First class. First class. The martial artists sitting in the audience cheered loudly. It was obvious that the sect of all times had become a top-notch sect. June Patriarch. Yi Tianxing took out the first-class sect certification token that he had prepared in advance and handed it over under the gaze of all the martial artists on the continent. He said in a serious tone, Congratulations on becoming a first-class sect. Thank you. Jun Changxiao took it. First class. Our sect of all times is first class. The disciples of the sect of all times, who were watching through the light screen, cheered loudly. Their excited voices rippled in the sky for a long time. Old friend, Elder Wei, who was sitting in the pavilion in the herb field, took a sip of tea and put down the teacup with trembling hands. He looked up at the sky with tears in his eyes and said, I've finished what you didn't finish. At that moment, the eyes of Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, Su Xiaoma, and the others were filled with pride. This was because they had all joined the sect when it was at its weakest. They had followed the patriarch step by step, and had personally experienced and witnessed each step. Ding! A notification sounded in his ear. The system attribute panel's ranking had officially changed from second class to first class. Jun Changxiao placed his hands on the podium and lowered his head slightly. All his efforts and sacrifices had finally paid off. The excitement brought by this could not be expressed with words. Only 2 tears of a man gathered at the corner of his eyes. Host. The system said, Congratulations, you've done it. There was no teasing, sarcasm, or ridicule in its words. It was completely sincere congratulations. Phew! Jun Changxiao took a deep breath and took the microphone. He said loudly, The Martial Alliance General Assembly has officially begun. The theme of the meeting is the sect of all times, is the leader of all forces in the world. I, Jun Changxiao, am the leader of the Martial Alliance. Who agrees and who disagrees? Chapter 1289. Jun Changxiao's emotions were greatly affected by the sect's promotion to a first-rate sect, so he wanted it to end quickly. Without wasting any time, he went straight to the point. The sect of all times wants to be the leader of all sects on the continent. I, Jun Changxiao, want to be the leader. I'll ask if you agree or not. However, after he finished speaking, the entire venue fell silent. The entire continent was silent, as if it was frozen in a painting. Many people didn't know the meaning of the Martial Alliance Conference, but now they all knew. Not only did the sect of all times want to become a first-rate sect, but they also wanted to rule the entire continent. If it were in the past, they would have cursed out loud. After all, who didn't want to be the leader? But since ancient times, was there anyone who could do it? But now, the martial artists were conflicted, and so were the ordinary people. Who wanted to be the leader? The patriarch of the sect of all times. He had entered the dimensional battlefield first, and expanded the territory there, turning what was supposed to be a hopeless situation into a vacation. Who didn't know about his kindness? The venue fell silent, and the atmosphere became serious. Jun Changxiao put one hand on the podium and imitated Secretary Dakong's tone. 9 martial emperors, please state your opinions. Emperor Jing, Emperor Ling, and the others looked at each other. They knew that the Martial Alliance Conference was held to establish an alliance, but they didn't expect Jun Changxiao to directly ask to be the leader, without going through the procedures. They were caught off guard. Cough! Suddenly, a light cough came from above. The 9 martial emperors looked up, and their eyes were filled with fear. The main culprits of the 9 levels of hell in the fortress were smiling at them. Their smiles were very sinister and terrifying. What was the meaning of this? Was this a blatant threat? Jun Patriarch is a genius. It's natural for him to be the leader of the Martial Alliance. I agree. Emperor Ling was the first to state his opinion. The other 8 martial emperors also expressed their support. In fact, Jun Changxiao had thought too much when he sent Yi Feishuet and the others over. Even if it was just rescuing them from hell, the 9 martial emperors would agree. Moreover, They had the strength to back it up. Everyone. Jun Changshao then looked at the patriarch of the various first-rate sects and asked, "What do you think? To be able to develop a ninth-rate sect into a top-notch sect in such a short period of time, this ability is unprecedented. I, Taishian Shengzong, am willing to follow the lead of the sect of all times and honor Jun Patriarch as the leader of Martial League." Taishian Shengzong Patriarch stood up and cupped his hands. This matter couldn't be started by one person, because it would be easy to lead the momentum. Therefore, all the top sects expressed their approval. The second and third-rate sects didn't even take the initiative to ask before expressing their approval. All of a sudden, the leaders of the various sects and clans agreed to appoint the sect of all times as the most powerful force in the continent and acknowledged Jun Changshao as the chief of the Martial Alliance. Southwest Yangzhou representative, do you agree? Agreed. Representative of Luzhou in the northeast, do you agree? Agreed. After continuously asking the representatives of the 9 prefectures, Jun Changshao asked again, "Representatives of the 3 prefectures, do you agree?" Agreed. Palace head Qiu and the others expressed their opinions. All 12 prefectures had agreed. Then, Jun Changshao looked at the sect master of the Demon Emperor's Gate and asked with a smile, "Do you agree?" 10,000, yes. Sect Master Shang said hurriedly. The righteous sects and the representatives of the prefectures agreed, because the sect of all times had helped the falling star continent. He agreed so urgently, because he was afraid of being robbed again. Everyone. Jun Changshao looked at everyone in the hall, then raised his head and looked at the projection formation. He said, "Do you all agree?" Agreed. We agree. All the cities and towns in the falling star continent, and all the places with projection screens, shouted at the same time. Their words were unanimous, and no one could find any opposing voices. What a joke! The 9 great martial emperors and the top sects had all agreed. How could he possibly disagree? Since no one is against it, Jun Changshao picked up a stack of documents and said, "Then, I would like to invite all the leaders of the sects here, whether they are righteous or evil, to sign the Martial Alliance agreement that I have made." The corners of the martial artist's mouths twitched. He had even written the agreement. As expected, he came prepared. The contracts were delivered to the leaders of the sections. When they all signed, it would mean that the Martial Alliance, led by the sect of all times, was officially established. All the sects that signed would be a member. Sigh. Qin Haoran, who was almost invisible in the hall, sighed. He had once founded the 100 Sect Alliance, but compared to this organization that covered all the sects, he was not even worthy of carrying the shoes. The agreement will take effect immediately. Jun Changshao arranged all the contracts and put his hands together on the podium. He said, "I am the first Martial Alliance leader. Greetings, Alliance leader. Greetings, Alliance leader." The 9 great martial emperors, the leaders of the sects, and the audience all stood up and bowed respectfully to Jun Changshao. Since everyone has elected me as the Martial Alliance leader, I will definitely fulfill my responsibilities and make the falling star continent stronger day by day. So, Jun Changshao snapped his fingers, and a small light screen appeared behind him. On it was a complete map of the falling star continent. There were eye-catching light spots in every region, densely covering the 9 regions. Go Sheng said loudly, "This is the super teleportation formation set up by the sect of all times. It can perform two-way teleportation. From today onwards, it will be officially released to the market. We will strive to make traveling more convenient for everyone." The 9 great martial emperors widened their eyes again. A two-way teleportation formation. This was very powerful. Of course, Jun Changshao said. The Aeon teleportation network was originally only used by our sections. Since it has been announced to the public, if you want to teleport, you must pay the corresponding amount of spirit stones. Jun Patriarch. Someone asked, "How far can this teleportation formation go?" Jun Changshao pointed to the map behind him and said, "You can teleport anywhere in the 9 regions as long as there is a teleportation formation. Moreover, it only takes a blink of an eye." A blink of an eye. Is it that magical? Look. There's a formation at the crossroads. Many martial artists in the big cities discovered that there was a formation at the most crowded and lively streets. There were also signs telling everyone how to pay the spirit stones, how to choose the location, and how to teleport. When was it set up? Of course, it was secretly set up by the formation hall of the sect of all times. Moreover, there was a high-level concealment formation. Even passers-by would not think that there was a teleportation formation there. Jun Changshao had been elected as the Martial Alliance leader. Naturally, he needed to prove himself. Therefore, all the teleportation formations were unhidden. Users only needed to pay a man-made spirit stone to enter and leave any region at will. Let me try. A martial artist followed the signs and placed a man-made spirit stone in the groove. He chose the corresponding location and obtained a teleportation token. Then, he walked in and was instantly teleported from West Cloud region to Northeast Lu region. Gosh, this is too magical. In the future, we don't have to travel so much when we go out. Jun Patriarch's actions will undoubtedly benefit the Falling Star continent for generations to come. Just as everyone was exclaiming over the convenience brought about by the teleportation formation, an extremely vast aura suddenly surged out from the sky. After that, it seemed to be forcefully torn apart by some sort of force, and a seven-colored throne that emanated supreme pressure gradually appeared. This is... Everyone exclaimed in shock. The Emperor's throne. Every time a plane gave birth to the strongest person, there would be all kinds of strange phenomena in the world. The strange phenomenon in the Falling Star continent was that when someone became a martial emperor, the Emperor's throne, which represented the supreme status, would appear in the sky. Unfortunately, because of the ancient war between martial emperors, only 10 people could become martial emperors. Only 10 people could sit on the emperor's throne until one of them died and was replaced. It's appeared again. The martial emperor's throne has appeared again. Back then, when the ninth arch ascended to the top, this scene appeared before. It's a pity that he died not long after sitting on it. The only vacant emperor's throne has never been inherited. Everyone was discussing in shock. Some martial artists even chose to kneel and kowtow to the emperor's throne that represented the supreme status. Then here came the question. Who is it? Who had reached the martial emperor realm and caused the emperor's throne to appear? Look at the light screen. Suddenly, there were people shouting in various cities. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. All the martial artists on the continent looked at the projection array and discovered that Jun Changshao, who was standing in front of the podium, was shrouded in rainbow-colored flowing light. It was exactly the same as the light of the emperor's throne that gathered in the sky. It's him. It's Jun Patriarch. He's going to ascend to the supreme emperor's throne. Chapter 1290. Jun Changshao was elected as the Martial Alliance's alliance master, and the meeting should have ended perfectly. However, a strange phenomenon appeared in the sky all of a sudden, and a majestic throne appeared, causing the third great commotion. The 9 martial emperors were stunned again. Since the Night Emperor's death, the only throne left had been empty. Today it appeared again. Didn't that mean that someone was going to be on equal footing with them? Crack! Yi Xingqian looked up at the majestic throne. He clenched his fists instinctively, his eyes flickering with anger. This was supposed to be his throne. Now he had to watch someone else take it. How could he allow someone else to sleep beside him? Yi Xingqian was so angry that he wanted to vent his anger by yelling at the top of his lungs. At that moment, Anyo noticed that Jun Changshao, who was standing in front of the podium, was surrounded by a colorful glow. He was shocked. He's going to break through to Martial Emperor. That's right. It was Jun Changshao. Not long after the major sects acknowledged the Eternal Sect as their leader and addressed him as the Martial Alliance leader, a series of notifications rang in his ears. Ding! Epic mission completed. Ding! The host has successfully upgraded the sect to a first-rate one and received the recognition of the major sects and top experts in the Falling Star continent. The conditions are met. Epic mission completed at 200%. The host has received 200,000 contribution points. Ding! Sect contribution points. 3000001000000. Ding! Sect contribution points are overflowing. It's here, it's here. Jun Changxiao could not control his emotions. He placed his hands on the podium. He knew that the contribution points were secondary. The rewards and cultivation level improvement were the most important. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing Epic Level Mission 13. You have received Supreme Goods X1, 7 Mysterious Sunglow Broken Scroll X1, Opening Seal Talisman 3, X1, Sect Function Upgrade X1, Recycling Pavilion Function X1. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing Epic Mission 14. You have obtained Divine Grade Aptitude Modifying Fluid X1, Divine Grade Formation Path Aptitude Modifying Fluid X1, Saint Grade Formation Path Aptitude Modifying Fluid X1, and Lingyan Pavilion's exclusive Divine Weapon Modifying Stone X2. Shirshan's mission completion rate was 200%. Not only did he receive 200,000 contribution points, but he also received many other generous rewards. On the other hand, Shirsi's mission, which had a 100% completion rate, was obviously a little cheap. That was not the main point. The main point was that he had completed both missions. The barrier that blocked his cultivation base had been broken. 2 indescribably majestic auras burst out from his dantian. 2 streams of energy that contained supreme profoundness poured into his sea of consciousness. For a moment, Jun Changxiao felt as if he was in an illusory realm. His body and soul were immersed in the ocean that represented martial arts. He was so comfortable that he frowned and groaned uncontrollably. Hoo-hoo! At the same time, his body was shrouded in 7-colored flowing light, and that kind of vast emperor's pressure spread out like stormy waves, instantly covering the entire venue. There were 2 types of chi waves. One was incomparably thick, while the other was incomparably sharp. When the 9 great martial emperors felt the terrifying sharpness, their facial muscles stiffened again. They cried out in alarm. Sword Emperor. Yi Xingqian had a very interesting expression on his face. Because Jun Changxiao's advancement was much more powerful than his back then. If it were someone else, he might be seriously dissatisfied. But since it was the patriarch, then so be it. What else could he do? Swish! At this moment, Jun Changxiao flew out of the venue with the 7-colored flowing light, and hovered in front of the emperor's throne in the sky. He was now the Sword Emperor and Martial Emperor. Only by sitting on the supreme throne could he be recognized by heaven and earth, and be recognized by the world. Swish! Jun Changxiao sat down. Hoo-hoo! 2 powerful emperors' auras gushed out from the thrones and instantly flooded the entire falling star continent. Ordinary people and weaker cultivators all knelt down and kowtowed in awe after being affected by the auras. Clang! Clang! At the same time, they unsheathed the swords hanging on their backs, and flew up into the sky from all over the world. They hovered around Jun Changxiao, presenting a spectacular scene of thousands of swords worshipping him. Pa! 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 Outside the venue, Li Tiantian kept pressing the camera button to record the patriarch's ascension to the supreme throne, and the worship of thousands of swords. Elders! When Shi Jingxian pulled Zhang Sun Fanghua and Leng Xingyue, she said excitedly, Jun Patriarch is sitting on the throne. He's now a martial emperor. The 2 Miaohua Palace elders' mouths twitched. Jun Changxiao's ascension to the Sword Emperor and Martial Emperor had indeed shocked them. However, why did the palace master look happier than the disciples of the sect of all times? It was true. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others looked up at the patriarch sitting on the throne. Although they had smiles on their faces, they were not surprised. It was as if this was how it should be. The patriarch is mighty! The patriarch is mighty! Thunderous cheers rang out in the sect of all times. At that moment, the pride and arrogance in the disciples' eyes became even stronger. Ah! Lu Wanshur was so excited that she jumped up and down. The patriarch has finally become a martial emperor in his lifetime. It's not comfortable. My butt hurts. Jun Changxiao shook his head and said, It's not as good as my sect's throne. The system was speechless. Countless experts want to sit on this throne. The host is actually complaining. What a slut. Jun Patriarch. The Spirit Emperor transmitted his voice. Since you've ascended to the throne, you can announce your imperial title. The 10 great martial emperors all had imperial titles. For example, the Ren Emperor and the fallen Night Emperor. Most of them used their surnames as their imperial titles. All beings, Jun Changshao said loudly. From now on, please call me the Martial Emperor. All the people on the continent were stunned. The system roared. The imperial title symbolizes identity and status. It will be recorded in history in the future. Host, can you treat it seriously? Am I not being serious now? The Falling Star continent didn't have any experts with the title Marshal. Therefore, Jun Changshao's imperial title was in accordance with the rules and procedures. Of course, he added, Martial Emperor is my lesser title. My true title is Imperial Monarch. Spirit Emperor, Jing Emperor, Luan Emperor, they were so vulgar. Jun Changshao didn't take the normal path. He wanted to use his surname, and the word Emperor, to form a new and unique title. I am the Emperor. I am the Emperor. I am the most handsome Emperor. The system was speechless. What's the difference between this and the Emperor who uses his surname? Of course there's a difference, Jun Changshao said. Others use the surname Emperor. I have 2 supreme titles. After all, Emperor refers to the Emperor and the Monarch. It also corresponds to the martial Dao and the sword Dao. Doesn't Emperor also represent the Monarch and the Emperor? You're about to retire. Why are you still talking so much nonsense? It's because I'm about to retire that I have to complain about the host. If I complain again, the readers will replace me. Ding! Congratulations to the host for developing the sect of all times into the strongest sect in 100 years, and having 100,000 disciples. You have met the requirements. The main mission will be completed. The mechanical voice sounded in their ears, causing the bickering duo to fall silent. Sigh. After a while, the system sighed and forced a smile. 10 years is a little short. However, I'm actually quite happy to be able to assist such a coquettish person like the host. There's still a long way to go. You'll have to rely on yourself. Before I leave, after a pause it said, I'll fulfill the host's last wish. Whoosh whoosh. Suddenly, a special energy that only Jun Changshao could see appeared around him. Then, it gradually condensed into a cloak with the word Sect written on it. Come, beat me up. Chapter 1291. When the cloak rustled as it appeared in his field of vision, and when he heard the voice saying, Come, beat me up, Jun Changshao was instantly certain that this was the system that he had been ridiculing like crazy. Damn it! It could actually materialize. What was he waiting for? Shwa. Jun Changshao stood up and gathered the energy of sword and martial arts in his right fist. He punched forward, his eyes full of anger from being ridiculed that year. Beat it up. He had to beat it up. Bang! A violent sound suddenly exploded. The space was instantly distorted, and visible ripples spread between heaven and earth. The 9 great martial emperors all widened their eyes. They saw Jun Patriarch walk forward like an arrow, and then a blurry figure loomed in the distance. The former seemed to be bombarded by an invisible force and flew away. Boom! Jun Changshao fell into a primitive forest like a cannonball. His whole body sunk into a deep pit, and there was an obvious footprint on his right face. It was obvious. He was kicked in the face. Sigh. The system, which had its back to the camera and pretended to be profound, sighed and said, Comfortable. He had agreed to let Jun Changshao come over and beat him up, but he unexpectedly kicked him out. This was simply, well done. Damn it. Gosheng stood up from the pit with difficulty, covering his face that was kicked, and said in surprise, It's so strong. The system transformed into its original form for the second time, and it was also the first time that Jun Changshao saw it with his own eyes. It was a little hard for him to believe that he was kicked out. Of course, it could be said that he was careless, but to be able to kick Jun Changshao, who had entered the sword and martial emperor's realm, meant that the system was indeed powerful. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the main mission and gaining abundant martial arts experience points. Ding! The host has successfully broken through to the middle-level void-piercing realm. Ho ho! Jun Changshao, who was standing in the deep pit, once again had a majestic aura around him. He had just completed the epic mission to break through to the Sword and Martial Emperor's realm, and then completed the main mission to upgrade to the middle-level void-piercing realm. However, Jun Changshao, who had obtained stronger cultivation and strength, was not happy at all at this moment, because the bastard who kicked him in the air was gradually disintegrating and blurring. Ding! As the host has successfully completed the main mission, the soul bomb is immediately removed. The time bomb that was bound to the soul in the space ring stopped beating. As for how much time was left, it was no longer important. What was important was that Jun Changshao had completed the mission within the time limit. 10 years of hard work, 10 years of hard work. The threat of having his toilet time deducted for long periods of time was finally fading away. Host, the system said, goodbye. Its back was slowly disappearing like the bomb. Of God. Of God of God of God of God. Of God. The bomb was deactivated. It was gone. If there was a difference between the two, the system would leave on its own if it succeeded. If it failed, it would leave together with the host. The system couldn't do it because it wasn't mechanized. It had feelings, and as a professional assistant, it should have professional qualities instead of tricking the host. I thought you were joking. Jun Changshao roared with tears in his eyes. Although the system ridiculed him, it was also a mentor on the road to growth, and a partner on the road to becoming stronger. Now that it had to leave, it could not accept it. It is the host's fate to not accept your fate. I can't, because I don't have a life. I'm just a pile of data. The system's back became more and more blurred, and its voice became weaker and weaker, until the soul bomb completely disappeared. It also turned into dust and scattered in the sky. Before it disappeared, it finally turned around, revealing a face without any facial features, with only the word unification written on it. The cloak was the unification, the face was the unification. This was the true face of the system that loved to ridicule. No. Looking at the disappearing figure, Jun Changshao roared with a ferocious face. At this moment, the BGM of the Bridge of Tears sounded, and the hoarse voice suddenly rendered the world to the extreme, making him feel lonely and lonely. Just like standing on a bridge under the scorching sun, tears running wildly, dripping onto my face. La 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 la. La 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 la. Fallen Star Calendar, 2019. The patriarch of the sect of all times, Jun Changshao, ascended the throne in front of everyone, with the minor title of Marshal and the great title of Eternal Emperor. From then on, he entered the era where the emperor ruled the world. However, after ascending the throne, he stood in the deep pit in a daze for 3 days and 3 nights. According to City Lord Han of the Great Honored Emperor's Imperial City, the emperor was reminiscing about his beloved who had passed away. Even heroes have a weakness for the charms of beautiful women. Even the peerless powerhouses who had become the sword and martial emperors would be deeply trapped. It was really a pity, and a warning to the younger generation. The above content was from the emperor's biography excerpt from the historical records many years later. Second senior brother. Outside the courtyard of Dragon Head Peak, Li Fei asked in a low voice. The patriarch should be happy that he became the emperor. But why did he lock himself in his room after returning? Li Qingyang shook his head and said, I don't know. In my opinion. Su Xiaomo rubbed his chin and said, only people who have fallen out of love, only people who have suffered a setback in their relationship would do that. The latter half of his guess was correct. Jun Changshao was indeed suffering a setback in his relationship. However, this relationship did not refer to the relationship between a man and a woman, but to friendship. After all, he had been with the system for 10 years. Even if they bickered, it was still considered a bad friend. The first day the system left, he thought of it. The second day the system left, he thought of it. The 7th day the system left. Hoo-hoo. In the study room, Jun Changshao picked up the paper money, with 10 million contribution points written on it, and slowly threw it into the brazier. He said sorrowfully, today is the 7th day of your death. Take these contribution points and spend them. If it's not enough, 375777, I'll burn some more for you. The next day, creak, Jun Changshao pushed open the door and walked out with a haggard face. The system could not be revived, and the future still had to continue. He had to pull himself together. Patriarch. In the cafeteria, Lu Wancher said with heartache. What happened to you? Were you abandoned by the Rose Queen? Is that why you can't recover? Jun Changshao, who was eating, put down his chopsticks. If it was in the past, the only one who liked to use the Rose Queen to ridicule him was that annoying fellow. Although Jun Changshao wanted to pull himself together in the following half a month, because the system was not chattering in his ears, he found it hard to adapt. Occasionally, he would even call out in a daze. Only when he did not receive a reply did he realize that the system had left. Li Fei. Here. I'm feeling terrible. One day, Jun Changshao sat on the stairs in front of the main hall, watching the disciples play football as usual. He accidentally killed an ant, and a clear notification sounded in his ears. Ding! The strongest Sect system upper realm version is activating. Ding! The strongest Sect system upper realm version has been successfully activated. Starting to load the data panel for the host. Ding! Loading successful. Does the host require the system's assistance? Yes, no. Chapter 1292. When Jun Changshao came to the Falling Star continent for the first time, he finally activated the strongest Sect system after crushing countless ants and fleas, and walked on the path to the peak. Now his strength had reached the middle level of the void-piercing realm. It might be due to his strong strength, or it might be just right. Crushing an ant actually activated the cheat again, and it was the upper realm version. Unlike the first version, this new system was very user-friendly. After the binding was successful, not only did it ask the host if he needed assistance, but it also gave him the options of yes and no. Jun Changshao was stunned, and then he was ecstatic. The system that just passed the 7th day of the month could be revived and returned. Choose yes, choose no? Was there a need to consider this? Jun Changshao raised his hand and tapped on the yes without hesitation. But suddenly, the reader's power from the previous chapter surged into his mind and occupied his thoughts, forcing him to move his hand to no, and then fiercely tap on it. Ding! The host has cancelled the system assistance. Fuck. Jun Changshao hugged his head and broke down. What's going on? He clearly wanted to choose yes. But why was there an irresistible force that forced him to choose no? No. No. I chose yes. I'll do it again. Jun Changshao roared angrily, but the system no longer sounded. Ah. Gosheng pulled his hair and roared at the camera. That bastard made me choose no. Sigh. Suddenly, a familiar voice sounded in his ear. Is it because I kicked the host that made you choose no? Gah. Jun Changshao was dumbfounded. After a while he said ecstatically, You resurrected? The system said. After the host completed the main mission, I entered the upgrade state. When the upper realm version was activated, I also finished upgrading so. It gathered its emotions for a while and laughed loudly. I lied to the host before, ha ha ha. As for the option just now, I deliberately gave it to you, ha ha ha. The corner of Jun Changshao's mouth twitched. Reader. MMP wasting my feelings for no. Ha ha ha. Ha 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 ha. On the stairs of the main hall, Jun Changxiao's unbridled laughter could be heard. Su Xiaoma and the others who were playing football happily said, The familiar patriarch is back. In the study, Jun Changxiao, who had been overjoyed just a moment ago, was now extremely dejected as he slumped in his chair. This was because he had opened the attribute panel of the strongest sect system. Sect name: the strongest sect of all ages. Sect master: Jun Changxiao. Sect level: first class sect construction. Level 10 sect members. 100000. Sect contribution points: 300,000. Sect achievement value: 0 based on the current data. There were no restrictions on members, contribution points, and achievement points. He should be able to recruit as many disciples as he wanted and obtain as many contribution points as he wanted. There was no need to worry about overspending. However, the main mission of the sect was to ask the host to ascend to the upper realm within 10 years. If the host failed to complete the mission, the host's soul would be destroyed when the time was up. Fuck. Jun Changshao fully demonstrated that even a mid-level void-piercing realm powerhouse could still be uncultured and uncultured. Very normal. The system said. Since the host has activated the upper realm version, you will definitely go up. It will definitely not allow you to travel around with your true love and live a life where you can only envy Mandarin ducks and not immortals. It was still the same dissing tone and the same dissing formula. Wonderful beyond words. Jun Changshao broke down and said, 10 years is too short. The last mission was at least 100 years, but this one only gave 10 years and required the host to ascend. Just thinking about it made it seem impossible. I'd better wait. When the new system version is activated, it should give the first wish item. I can't choose a knife to kill myself with again. The new system will indeed give the first wish and a big gift package, but only when the host ascends to the upper realm will the conditions be met. The system said. Jun Changshao said, then I'm relieved. In fact, he was quite reluctant to go to the upper realm because he would face an unknown and stronger environment. Who knew if he was a master in the mortal world and would become a grandson after going up? It was better to stay, talk about love and act cool. Now that the system said that it would give him the first wish and a big gift package, it would undoubtedly help him to have the capital to establish himself after entering a foreign world. But then again, ascending to the upper realm was too difficult. Jun Changshao had already grasped the heaven and earth creation array, and he himself had mid-level void-piercing realm strength. If he couldn't ascend by force, he could still sneak in. But there were still 100,000 disciples at home. If he brought them along, it wouldn't be called sneaking in. It would be called moving the entire clan. I firmly believe. The system said seriously. The host can do it. Jun Changshao threw this question aside and said, transform into a human form, and let me see what changes you have. Damn it. Previously it was kicked for no reason. Because it wanted to die, it chose to forgive it. In the end it was lying to itself. No matter what, it had to get back at it today. The system said, sorry, there is a limit to transforming into a human form. Of course it knew Go Sheng's thoughts. Even if it could transform into its original form, it wouldn't take the initiative to come out. After all, when the two of them fought, the ones who would be watching the show would be the group of readers who chose no outside the screen. Jun Changshao didn't say anything, and his soul entered the space ring. Until he saw the brick bomb that had originally disappeared and now returned, he broke down and said, do I have to carry this damn bomb for the rest of my life? Ding! The soul bomb was officially activated and instantly shortened by 10 days. As for the reason, everyone knew. During the period when the system died. Although Jun Changshao was sad, he was actually quite happy because he finally didn't have to worry about the bomb and could finally live a carefree life. But the good times didn't last long. He returned to his old profession and carried the bomb bag again. There was no other way. Anyway, he was used to it. Since he couldn't resist, he could only accept it. Gulp. Gulp. Jun Changshao drank the sacred and divine grade formation aptitude liquid and instantly reached the strongest level of the falling star continent formation emperor. This cheat was crazy. Gosheng didn't give it to Zhen Dijuan because he was going to throw away all distracting thoughts and focus on the fortune-seizing great array of heaven and earth. Ascending with the whole sect meant bringing 100,000 disciples up to the upper realm. Even if they all reached the upper level of the void-piercing stage in 10 years, they wouldn't be able to ascend, so the best way was to sneak in. Can it work? Jun Changshao was a little unconfident. As long as he was willing to put in more effort and water, it wouldn't be a problem to set up the fortune-seizing great array of heaven and earth. But it might not be enough for 100,000 disciples to sneak in. Moreover, back then, Empress Lingyao used the array to sneak in, and just as she stepped in, the Starry Sky Fortress attacked. If he followed this method, he would definitely be discovered by them. Jun Changshao muttered in his heart, I still have to make arrangements in advance to prevent the Starry Sky Fortress from causing trouble. If it really doesn't work, his eyes suddenly became cold and fierce. I'll destroy them first. Chapter 1293. Jun Changshao, who had become a sword and martial emperor, and stepped into the middle level of the void-piercing realm, actually had the idea of taking the initiative to destroy the Starry Sky Fortress. I support, the system said. Host, don't worry and be bold. It didn't care if Jun Changshao could win against the 12 patrol envoys and the fortress master. It only cared that if he couldn't win, he would definitely ask for help from the system store, which would stimulate him to spend contribution points. This guy didn't change at all after leveling up. It was really unfair for Go Sheng to hide in his room alone for a while, secretly wiping away his tears. However, Jun Changshao said, how to deal with this Starry Sky Fortress needs to be considered at length. I can't be too rash. Shua. His soul entered the space ring and stood in front of the supreme item that Shursen rewarded him for the mission. He thought to himself, what good things will I get? He placed his hand on it. Ding! Activating the supreme item requires 100,000 contribution points. Please choose. Yes, no, Jun Changshao roared. This also costs money. The system said. Because the host completed the main mission, the system entered a comprehensive upgrade state. The extra 200,000 contribution points are worth saving with luck. So, do you still care about spending 100,000? After thinking for a while, he still chose yes. Ding! The host has activated the supreme item and obtained the first-generation Soul Bomb X1. It has been transferred to the space ring. Ding! Sect contribution points, 200,000. Jun Changshao's expression froze and then gradually collapsed. I spent 100,000 contribution points and bought the bomb back? Forming a double-channel explosive package? Jun Changshao roared. How can I play with this? The system said, this first-generation soul bomb has been completely separated from the host. Because it was once bound, it can be detonated at any time. Is that so? Jun Changshao hurriedly took the bomb that looked like a brick. As expected, there was no time display on it, only 2 red buttons. On the left was a time note, and on the right was an instant note. So it's divided into instant and instant. Host, it's best to move your hand further away. If you accidentally press instant, it will be a godly work. Jun Changshao immediately put down the bomb and roared again. In other words, I spent 100,000 contribution points to buy a bomb? You still have to be on tenterhooks, and be careful not to be detonated. You can use it to blow up an interstellar fortress. The system replied. How's its power? Host, please do not doubt a bomb that is worth 100,000 contribution points. And even more so, do not doubt a supreme product. Jun Changshao stood up and put on his dazzling sunglasses. He placed his hands on his forehead and smoothed out his hair. All right, let's go blow up the cosmic fortress. Of course. The system said, with the host's current strength, you might not be able to use them. Dog Leftover loved to hear these words. After completing the epic mission and the main mission, Jun Changshao had reached the middle level of the void-piercing realm. Moreover, he was promoted by the sword and martial emperors. Facing the 12 patrol envoys of the same realm would not be a problem. Perhaps he would not even need to use too strong a trump card. Therefore, that was why he dared to make arrangements for the Starry Sky stronghold. Otherwise, he would definitely be eating chicken. How about? Jun Changshao thought to himself. I'll go and try first. His heart was very restless because it had been almost a month since he broke through. Not to mention testing his true combat strength. He did not dare to easily unleash his full cultivation because he was afraid that the falling star continent would not be able to withstand it. The middle level of the void-piercing realm already had the qualifications to ascend to the upper realm. Therefore, the mortal plane could not accommodate this dog emperor at all. Wait a minute. Jun Changshao suppressed the urge to fight with the patrol envoys and used the Sect's function to upgrade the Talisman Pavilion to an enhanced version. Then he matched it with the Recovery Pavilion function. This new function was just like its name. It could recover items that had lost their use, and even had a price tag. For example, the Opening Seal Talisman. After Jun Changshao upgraded to the 3rd form of the hard-to-keep blade, there was only one left. It was useless now, and could be exchanged for 10,000 contribution points. Change. Ding! Recovery of opening seal talisman X1. Gain 10,000 contribution points. Ding! Sect contribution points. 210000. Jun Changxiao continued to look at the recovery column and was instantly overjoyed. This was because the elixirs and equipment refined by the elixir pavilion and the forging pavilion could also be recovered. Back then, he had refined a lot of beginner elixirs. Because there were too many of them, and the disciples had taken them, they were just sitting there. If he could recover them and exchange them for contribution points, it would definitely be great. However, when he selected the beginner chi gathering pill, he was instantly depressed because the value had increased to 10,000, and he could only exchange it for 10 contribution points. If it was at the start, it might be very helpful, but now, it was just a drop in the ocean. Furthermore, using 10,000 chi gathering pills to exchange for 10 contribution points, he might as well sell them for martial arts resources. The system said, as long as there are enough materials to refine elixirs and other items, the host can use the recovery pavilion to gain contribution points indefinitely. Jun Changxiao rolled his eyes. It was true that he could use the low-level goods to gain contribution points indefinitely, but with such a low exchange rate, even if he gathered all the resources of the entire continent, how much could he gain? Forget it, Jun Changxiao said. It's better to earn it by doing missions. I, Jun Changxiao, will not do such a thing. Shua, opening the purchased item column, his gaze locked onto the 7 profound rays broken scroll fragment 7, then rubbed his hands and said, if I buy this last one, I can gather all 7 dragon balls and summon the divine dragon. Damn it. Why is it another 100,000? The 200,000 contribution points that were not swallowed by the system upgrade were completely spent after buying the supreme goods and the 7 profound rays broken scroll. Although it was a little painful, it was still acceptable. The 7 scrolls were originally neatly arranged together, but unfortunately, they did not summon the divine dragon. They only emitted a more profound martial arts mystery. What exactly is hidden inside? Jun Changxiao secretly said. According to the black and white Rakshasa, there was a great opportunity in the scrolls. If he could find out, his martial arts would definitely make a qualitative leap. I can't find out. I can't find out at all. Jun Changxiao pondered for more than 2 hours. After finding nothing, he went to the cafeteria to take Lu Wansher's personal divine weapon and gave it to Master Fan to upgrade it. Little brother. Just as he walked out of the forging hall, the white Rakshasa's voice rang in his ears. There is a warship approaching the falling star continent. Xiao. Jun Changxiao disappeared, and the camera followed. He was already standing in the vast universe. Because he had entered the middle level of the void-piercing realm, the pressure around him could not bring any threat to him. So fast. Seeing the patriarch appear in front of him, the black Rakshasa thought to himself, little brother's current strength is definitely not below mine. Jun Changxiao's eyes were like torches as he looked into the depths of the darkness. In an instant, he caught sight of a speeding warship. His gaze locked onto a burly, muscular middle-aged man standing at the bow of the ship. He smiled and said, an old acquaintance has come. Chapter 1294. Who was the one flying the warship? That's right, it was Yin Hu, one of the 12 patrol envoys who had been defeated by the great sage. It had to be said that the Starry Sky Fortress's medical standards were quite high. It hadn't been long, and Yin Hu was already full of energy. Fuck, Jun Changxiao thought of something and slapped his forehead. This guy still owes me money, the system said sharply. The host can forget about his wife and everything, but he will never forget who owes him money. Of course, Jun Changxiao said. If someone wants me to remember them, the best way is to owe me money. The system was speechless. Little brother, the black Rakshasa said, the newcomer doesn't seem weak. Do you want the 2 of us to take him down? No need. Jun Changxiao said, leave it to me. He was just thinking about who to test his combat strength on, when a punching bag suddenly appeared. He couldn't miss it. Old friend. Jun Changxiao crossed his arms and grinned. Don't let me down. Whoosh. The Starry Sky warship cut through the void and headed for the Starfall continent. However, Yin-Hu, who was standing at the bow of the ship, looked gloomy. His boss didn't let him participate in the investigation of the prison break, and instead arranged for him to investigate the murder of the enforcer general. The main reason was that he had been crippled by the staff. Although he had recovered from his injuries, he wasn't at his peak for the time being. That was why the envoy asked him to investigate the case first. Guan Jiao and He Qi were here, and so was the enforcer general. There must be something fishy going on. Yin-Hu took out a map and locked onto the Starfall continent, because it was the only plane with living beings nearby. I have to investigate it as soon as possible, and then meet up with the others to capture the main culprits. The escape of prisoners from the 9th level of hell was a big deal. If he couldn't participate in it himself, he would be a disgrace to his position as a patrol envoy. Screech. Suddenly, the warship that was traveling at high speed came to an emergency stop. Yin-Hu, who was standing at the bow of the ship, put down the map and looked into the distance. His expression gradually became serious, because there was a young man in a black robe floating in front of them. He looked familiar a little. It's you. Yin-Hu's eyes flickered with disbelief. He had already judged from the person's attire and figure that this was the person who had summoned some kind of heroic spirit and defeated him with a single strike. If one had to point out a difference, it would be that he was previously bald, but now his hair reached his waist. Yes, it's me, Jun Changshao said with a smile. After his strength had increased, this guy was obviously more flashy than before. Yin-Hu's eyes gradually turned cold. According to boss deduction, the escape of the 9 main culprits must have something to do with this person. He came to investigate another case, and unexpectedly met him in the universe. Kid, Yin-Hu growled. Did you instigate the other main culprits to break out of prison? Jun Changshao said frankly, that's right. Since he already had plans to destroy the Starry Sky stronghold, there was no need to hide it. Breaking out of prison in public is an additional crime. Yin-Hu flew out of the warship and hovered several hundred feet away from Jun Changshao. The cloak behind him rustled as he said, surrender now and follow me to the fortress to receive your punishment. I'm sorry, Jun Changshao said plainly. I need to say it again. There is no law in the mortal plane that can convict me of any crime, and that includes your Starry Sky stronghold. He really hated this kind of behavior, convicting people without official permission. The main culprits imprisoned in the 9 levels of hell all have the ability to bring disaster to the world. You let them out in public, and that is an unforgivable crime. Yin-Hu said coldly. He did not care if he had the right to convict others, because he always held the word justice in his heart. So at the end of the day, Jun Changshao and the Starry Sky stronghold were not in the wrong, or perhaps they were both in the wrong, but it was difficult to tell who was right and who was wrong. Moreover, it was a bit of a joke to talk about right and wrong in a system that respected martial arts. The simple and crude logic was that if my fist was strong, I was right, and if your fist was strong, you were right. Huff huff. A strong and heavy aura emanated from Yin-Hu's body, and then he channeled all his power into his fists. It was obvious that he wanted to use simple logic to carry out the absolute justice in his heart. Jun Changshao said, before we fight, I hope that you can keep your promise and... He suddenly roared, pay me back the money you owe me. He won the bet last time, but the other party fainted and did not have a space ring on him. So, he decided to talk about the money first before fighting. Yin-Hu recalled that incident, and his old face flushed a little. He then smirked and said, I think you said that you didn't want the 1 million. Bullshit. Jun Changshao roared. I said that if I couldn't break the formation above, the 1 million spirit stones you owed me would be written off. But in fact, not only did I break it, I even broke out of prison with the main culprit, so you still owe me the money. That's all in the past. Moreover, you didn't ask me for the money back then, so it's as good as null and void. Yin-Hu roared. Fine, Jun Changshao said. You're going back on your word. I Yin-Hu never go back on my word. Then give me the money back. I don't owe you money, so why should I pay you back? You don't pay me back when you owe me money, you're a rotten ass. You're the rotten ass. Your whole family is rotten ass. You. Go to hell. Jun Changxiao and Yin Hu got closer and closer, putting their hands on their hips and cursing at each other. Unable to control their emotions, they even spat at each other. The system was speechless. For the sake of 1,000,000 spirit stones, their faces and ears were flushed red, and they were even swearing. These weren't two middle-level void-piercing tier elites, but two idiots. Huff huff. Yin Hu cursed for a long time until his mouth was dry. He then said coldly, "Let's not talk about the money for now. You have to come back to the fortress with me today, to accept your punishment." "How about this?" Jun Changxiao said. "Let's make another bet. If you win, I'll go back to the fortress with you, and I won't even ask for 1,000,000. If I win, you have to give me 2,000,000. He had wanted to say 10,000,000, but he saw that other than the fact that the guy's worship was worth something, he also had an air of poverty about him, so he decided to ask for less. "Fine," Yin Hu said. "Do you have the money? I can write an IOU." Boom. As soon as he said that, Jun Changxiao suddenly appeared in front of him and punched him in the stomach. He said, "You're really a poor bastard. You." Yin Hu's eyes widened, and the expression on his face became more and more ferocious. Then he was sent flying with a whoosh, crashing into several meteorites before he could stabilize himself. Barf, blood rolled and spurted out of his mouth. Jun Changxiao's punch was not only sudden, but it also contained a lot of strength. Yin Hu's eyes were filled with shock and awe. He had lost to him once, but it was only because he had a special heroic spirit. His combat strength was very weak, but after not seeing him for a few months, he suddenly became so terrifying. Whoosh! All of a sudden, Jun Changxiao appeared in front of him again, and his right hand swung out lightly, carrying with it a suffocating power. Boom! Yin Hu had no time to dodge at all. He took the hit with his right face, and then he was sent flying like a cannonball, finally landing in a ruined plane. Impossible. He struggled to get up from the depths of the crater, holding his swollen face as he looked at Jun Changxiao, who was gradually appearing in the air, and said in disbelief, "This is impossible." Whoosh! Jun Changxiao raised his hand and said plainly, "You're really weak." Huff huff. Huff huff. Attributes burst out all over the sky, gathering into pairs of huge hands, which contain the supreme might of the emperor, and pressing down hard. Boom! 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 The originally deserted world gradually fell apart under the bombardment of the terrifying palms, until everything quieted down. Yin Hu seemed to have sunk into the depths of the earth's core, and he passed out with his nose and eyes slanted. The second time they fought, it was definitely a one-sided fight. The strength of the Dog Emperor was terrifying. Chapter 1295. Jun Changxiao's second battle with Yin, who was a textbook example of a crushing defeat. If he had to find some excuse for his opponent, it would probably be that he was not at his peak due to his injuries. But it did not seem to make much of a difference. Big black idiot. The white Rakshasa was shocked. Little brother is too strong. The black Rakshasa frowned, recalling the powerful spiritual energy that Jun Changxiao had unleashed with his every move, and said seriously, "With his current strength, he can definitely ascend to the higher realm." As the two spectators who had witnessed the entire battle, they were completely shocked by Jun Changxiao's performance. After all, when they first met him, although he was strong, he had only relied on the stone statue's power. Now, he had defeated a middle-level void-piercing cultivator with his strength alone. This rate of growth was too fast. This feels good. Suspended in the air above the shattered plane, Jun Changxiao's lips curled into a satisfied smile. Defeating an opponent he had once regarded as a high mountain made him feel very good. And he even had the urge to charge into the starry fortress alone and plant a bomb. Calm down, Jun Changxiao said to himself. There are still 11 opponents like this. Moreover, we don't know what the fortress master's cultivation level is yet. Neither arrogant nor discouraged by victory is not the host's style, the system encouraged. Going straight to the starry fortress is the host's style. Jun Changxiao rolled his eyes, then waved his hand to grab the unconscious Yin Hu and throw him into the Tianyuan prison pagoda. If he defeated him in the Starry Fortress, he could be teleported away and treated in time. Now, he could only be a prisoner. Letting these fellows who like to convict and lock people in prison experience prison life is actually not bad, Jun Changshao said to himself. A bold idea rose in his mind, and that was not only to blow up the Starry Fortress, but also to lock the patrol envoys and the fortress master in his own prison. This way, no one would stop him when he snuck in. Pagoda of confinement. 9 floors of the prison. The unconscious Yin Hu opened his eyes, and the pain from his entire body surged into his mind, and his entire face became ferocious. After a while he struggled to stand up, looked at the unfamiliar surroundings and whispered to himself, What is this place? Pa! Suddenly, the lights in front of them flickered, illuminating an area. Jun Changshao sat on the chair with his legs crossed, like the brightest star in the endless darkness, and said, This is my private prison. Yin Hu suppressed his injuries and said angrily, Setting up a prison without permission is a serious crime. Private prison? Jun Changshao rested his arms on his thighs and leaned forward. He smiled and said, Is the 9 levels of hell in the Starry Sky Fortress legal? The 9 levels of hell were built by the Upper Realm Hall. Do you think it's illegal? Yin Hu said coldly. As expected. Jun Changshao interlocked his fingers and rested his chin on the back of his hand. The backer of this fortress is the Jia Hall. Previously, the black and white Rakshasa had said that only the World Hall had the Enforcer's bow when he obtained it from the Enforcer General. Now that he heard the patrol envoy's words, he was certain that there was a connection between the two. In fact, the 9 levels of hell were indeed built by the Jia Hall, and their purpose was to imprison creatures that caused harm to the world. However, the imprisonment of prisoners was decided by the Jia Hall. Later on, they began to imprison creatures in large numbers, because of the personal reasons of the previous fortress owners. To put it bluntly, the Jia Hall opened a prison in the lower realm. Later on, the warden who was in charge of guarding the prisoners grew in power. He first transformed it into a fortress, then turned himself into the law. The authorities recognized the 9 levels of hell, but did not recognize their own rules. However, since the emperor was far away, they did not take it seriously. That was why the Starry Sky Fortress, which represented justice and law, was created. Kid, Yin Hu said angrily, what you're doing now is a serious violation of the laws of the Starry Sky Fortress. You'd better turn yourself in and fight for leniency. Bam! As soon as he said that, Jun Changshao punched him in the stomach and said coldly, Forget the laws of the Starry Sky Fortress. Even the laws of the Upper Realm Hall can be easily trampled on by me. You! Yin Hu immediately collapsed and said, You're awesome. Trampling on the laws of the Jia Hall. This guy really dared to say anything. He was a complete lunatic. Area! Jun Changshao shouted. Teach him a lesson. Yes, master. Arya appeared beside Yin Hu without anyone noticing, and put the flashlight under his chin. The light shone on his face from bottom to top. She said eerily, Enjoy the good times. Yin Hu's heart trembled. Slap, slap, slap. Arg! The patrol envoy, who was already seriously injured, suddenly screamed in pain under the whip of the sexy soul. The eye of the void was so scared that it shrank into a corner and trembled. After a few hours of training, Yin Hu was hung in the air like mud. There was not a single part of his body that was intact. It was extremely miserable. The patrol envoy, who had once represented justice and captured criminals many times, was now a prisoner and tortured. It could be said that the world was unpredictable, and it was a pity. Let's get down to business. Jun Chang smiled and said, Did you come here to investigate the matter of the law enforcement general that I killed? So, you killed him. His body and soul were severely damaged, and Yin Hu, who had been very strong, was almost unable to speak properly. Sigh. Jun Changshao shook his head and said, I had no intention of going against the Starry Sky Fortress, but you sent people to harass me time and time again. So don't blame me for. He put the skin on his shoulder and said, Being cruel. His appearance and voice gradually changed until he finally took on the appearance of Yin Hu. Even his exposed muscles bulged. You. Seeing that it was an exact copy of himself, Yin Hu suddenly realized something and said angrily, You want to impersonate me? Jun Changshao shrugged and smiled. If I'm not mistaken, the other 11 should be looking for me all over the universe. I want to give them a surprise. After crushing a patrol envoy with his strength, Goshen gained absolute confidence. Thus, he would not sit around and wait for the other party to find him. Instead, he chose to take the initiative to attack and defeat them one by one, allowing the 12 brothers to reunite in the pagoda of confinement. The anger on Yin Hu's face grew. He had to admit that this guy had impersonated him, and both his appearance and voice were very real. If his boss and the others did not notice anything amiss, they would have been easily ambushed. Area. Jun Changshao ordered. Train him more. Yes, master. Remove the U from the word master. It's too disgusting. Yes, master. Sect of all times. Jun Changshao made simple arrangements for the sect's internal affairs, then took Yin Hu's interstellar warship and flew into the endless stars. 11th Patrol Envoy, I'm here. Chapter 1296. Jun Changshao left again. He was still alone, but the sect did not press the pause button. The disciples continued to cultivate as usual, moving towards a higher realm. If they knew that the sect leader was shouldering the mission of bringing everyone to the upper realm, they would definitely work even harder. After all, no one wanted to go to a higher realm one day and become a pitiful worm that could be bullied by others. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others were not idle either. After breaking through to the half-saint realm with the help of the half-saint elixir, they were all cultivating every moment. On the contrary, Lu Qianqian began to calm down after entering Wu Sheng and began to teach the new female disciples. However, because the cultivation method was too extreme, the rate of return was not very high. Senior Sister Lu, Xia Shuiyan said, Can I ask you some questions about the ice element? She would often come to the sect of all times to find Su Xiaoma, although she was more responsible for showing off her affection to the disciples. Sure. Lu Qianqian said. Senior brother. Li Fei, who was squatting in the distance, said in surprise. Don't you feel that senior sister seems to have changed a lot recently? Especially her tone. It's much gentler than before. Su Xiaoma said. Yeah, it's a bit strange. Li Qingyang, who came from afar, said. Senior sister only cultivates the ice element and gives people a cold feeling. In fact, she cares about us junior brothers. Whoosh. Whoosh. Suddenly cold air filled the air. Everyone turned around and saw Lu Qianqian staring at them. Why aren't you going back to your cultivation? Whoosh. Whoosh. In an instant, Su Xiaoma and Li Fei disappeared without a trace. Li Qingyang's mouth twitched slightly, and he added in his heart. It's just that the way she cares is a bit extreme. Boom. Boom. Inside the life and death secret realm, Yi Xingchen was sweating profusely as he waved his fists, killing all the spirit beasts that were attacking him. His eyes were filled with anger. He didn't care that the emperor's throne that should have belonged to him had been taken. What he cared about was when he could reach the peak like the patriarch and ascend to the upper realm to seek revenge. Boom boom boom. Angry roars and explosions were heard, and all the spirit beasts in the illusion were killed. Yi Xingchen clenched his fists, and his eyes flickered with anger. The stronger one was, the deeper the hatred. Right now, he only wanted to break through to the martial emperor realm as soon as possible, so that he could enter the upper realm to look for Empress Ling Yao and slay her with his sword. Come. Inside the cafeteria, Yi Xingchen placed a jar full of drunken dreams on the table and shouted, Let's have a drinking contest. The wine demon grinned and said, I couldn't ask for more. Gulp. Gulp. After drinking a jar of drunken dreams, Yi Xingchen's eyes began to blur. Unbearable memories flashed before his eyes. Instead of drinking to drown his sorrows, he became even more sorrowful. This day, Anyo drank too much again. This day, Anyo was defeated by Z on Spirit Beast Peak again. This day, Anil was brought back to his room by Li Qingyang and the others. He kept mumbling, I want revenge, I want revenge. The upper realm, in the majestic hall, Empress Ling Yao, who was shrouded in clouds, said, Someone in the falling star continent has broken through to the martial emperor realm? Yes, master, the hunchbacked old man said. Who? The patriarch of the sect of all times. Oh, Empress Ling Yao nodded. The hunchbacked old man sighed and said, This person was only at the Wuxia realm when he was punished in the dimensional battlefield. In such a short time, he has broken through to the martial emperor realm. His speed of growth is astonishing. Does the realm hall know? Not yet. All right, the hunchbacked old man said solemnly. I just received news that the realm hall has decided to imprison the traitor in the mortal universe's 9 levels of hell forever. This is an extremely dangerous person. If it is difficult to suppress him in the lower realm, he might cause great suffering. Empress Ling Yao said, The realm hall really doesn't take the mortal universe seriously. The 9 levels of hell were built by the realm hall. There are all kinds of profound formations inside. If the traitor is sent to the lower realm, his realm and cultivation will be suppressed. There shouldn't be any problems, right? The hunchbacked old man said. Empress Ling Yao was silent for a moment, then said, I'm just afraid that there might be an accident. In a pitch-black tunnel, a half-naked man with disheveled hair walked out under the escort of dozens of powerful cultivators. There were strange tattoos on his back, and as his muscles twitched, he looked like a ferocious beast. After a while, the group arrived in front of the formation. Do you have anything to say before you leave? The leader of the powerful cultivators in charge of escorting the man asked. The tattooed man standing in front of the matrix gently raised his hand and parted his messy hair, revealing a pale and ferocious smiling face. He said, When I return, it will be the day of the Jia Hall's destruction. Stubborn, the leader said coldly. Reflect on your actions in the 9 levels of hell. Kakik, the tattooed man swaggered to the front of the formation, and even when he was teleported out, his eerie laughter still echoed in the sky. Domain chief, one of the subordinates couldn't help but ask, This traitor is extremely dangerous. Why didn't you just kill him? Why did you have to imprison him in the lower realm? The leader said, This person has a reincarnation spirit that was born in the universe. Every time he dies, he will reincarnate and become stronger. The best way is to imprison him forever. I see. The subordinate understood and shook his head. Having a spirit seed born in the universe, he will definitely become someone great. What a pity, he just had to be a traitor. Whoosh! The space of the mortal universe was suddenly torn apart by some kind of infinite power. A stream of light shot out from the depths of the void and merged into the starry sky fortress. It's here. The fortress master looked at the complicated formation in front of him with an unusually serious expression. He had already received news from the realm hall that there was a criminal being imprisoned in the 9 levels of hell. They had also instructed him to guard him carefully and not let him escape. Sigh. If the upper realm knew that someone had already escaped, would they punish him? No. He couldn't let the realm hall know about this. Otherwise, losing his position would be a small matter, but losing his life would be a big matter. While he was thinking, the tattooed man with messy hair walked out of the formation. He looked around and said, This is the 9 levels of hell that imprisoned me. Swoosh. The fortress master raised his hand and pulled the chain over, pulling him to the 9 levels of hell. Prisoners sent down directly from the upper realm had to be locked in the lowest level, no matter how badly their realm was suppressed by the heavenly axiom. As for the danger rating, it had to be above A. Hey! Can you be gentler to me? You mortal trash, if I wasn't restrained, I could crush you with one finger. Are you a mute? Say something for me to hear. Creak. Just as the tattooed man was talking nonstop, the gate to the 9 levels of hell closed. He was the only one in the dark environment, so he sat down casually and said, No, I have to think of a way to kill myself. I can't spend the rest of my life in prison. Bang, bang, bang. He picked up a stone beside him and smashed it on his head a few times. His face was covered in blood and stone foam flew everywhere. He broke down and said, Is it so hard for me to die? Just now, In the starry sky, Jun Changshao held his chin and said, "What was that?" He happened to see a stream of light flying down from the universe, heading in the direction of the starry sky fortress. Wah! The sound of vomiting blood came from below. After the camera zoomed out, it was revealed that Jun Changshao was not standing on the emissary's warship, but on a similar warship. He was even stepping on a fat man, who was at least 150 kilograms. This man was the emissary of the 12 patrol emissaries. He endured the pain and said weakly, You're not Inhu. Who are you?" "It's me. The Marshal. Jun Changshao." Chapter 1297. The new main mission only had a 10-year time limit. Jun Changshao had to get rid of the Starry Sky Fortress as soon as possible to ensure that he would not be disturbed when using the formation. Therefore, he found Hai Shi and launched a sneak attack. His strength was already very strong, and using sneak attacks made it impossible for him to win. Therefore, another patrol envoy fell and was taken into the Tianyuan Prison Pagoda. After all, he was in the middle void-piercing realm. To show respect, Jun Changshao locked him in the 9th level to keep Inhu company. The two brothers were hung up together and accepted the influence of Arya's love. I'll talk. Unable to withstand the crazy torture on his soul, Hai Shi spilled the beans and sold all the information he knew, as well as the approximate location of his teammates. Inhu roared angrily, "Coward. Pa. Don't hit me anymore, madam." After receiving the information, Jun Changshao continued to search for his next target in the universe. In just a few days he found Su Shi, Shen Shi, and Yu Shi. Their overall strength was slightly weaker than Inhu's, but they were still in the middle void-piercing realm. However, none of them noticed or guarded against the sneak attacks of their companions. Sorry. Every time Jun Changshao succeeded, he would say helplessly, "I'm a spy." How shameless. The system was speechless, but agreed with the host's way of playing dirty and not fighting the Starry Sky Fortress head-on. In the past, Jun Changshao was very arrogant and courted death. However, because he had all kinds of trump cards, he gave people a feeling that he was almost invincible. Now that he was playing dirty, he was really invincible and impossible to guard against. The poor patrol envoys were in the middle void-piercing realm. Even if they were defeated, they would at least need a chapter to show their characteristics. However, they were defeated before they even had the chance to show their faces. The number of people was still increasing, because Jun Changshao was still searching. Of course, he also encountered more troublesome patrol envoys, such as Si Shi. Not only was he meticulous, but he was also as slippery as a snake. Even if Jun Changshao succeeded in his sneak attack, he still escaped with his special ability, and chased him for a few days before he was captured. Inhu, who was hung up, saw Emissary C enter. He shook his head and sighed, "Even the best of us got caught." At this moment, there were already 6 companions accompanying him, and they were trained by Arya every single day. It could be said that they were extremely happy. Boom. In the dark universe, powerful spiritual energy was rampant. Boom. A short while later, the tall and burly afternoon messenger crashed directly into the huge meteorite. Then, he looked at Jun Changshao with a look of pain and horror. In the outer regions of the interstellar fortress, he had once forcefully stopped the ancient battleship. At that time, the other party's aura had been extremely weak, and he could have easily dealt with it. Why would he encounter such a terrifying opponent today? "Friends," Jun Changshao said indifferently, "you exceeded the speed limit just now." That's right. In order to find the escaped prisoners as soon as possible, the ship sailed too fast. However, the speed of the ship was set by the Starry Sky Fortress. If it was fast, it would be fast. If it was slow, it would be slow. If it was slow, it would be slow. Damn it. The noon messenger struggled to break free from the crater. Then he crossed his hands, and a special aura instantly filled his body. A gorgeous winged Pegasus gradually formed behind him, and it raised its head to look up and neighed. Spiritual energy transformed into a horse? Jun Changshao was surprised. Swoosh. At this moment, Afternoon Messenger leaped onto the horse, unleashed a powerful aura, turned around and fled. What was a 1,000-mile horse? Jun Changxiao saw it today, because the horse beast transformed from spiritual energy flapped its wings, took a step forward, and disappeared without a trace. At this speed, the interstellar battleship would definitely not be able to catch up. Do you think you can run away? Jun Changxiao sneered. Then he summoned the ancient battleship. The spirit stones in the pilot's room were fully unleashed. In an instant, it jumped through space and chased after Afternoon Messenger. Then, a scene of the ship chasing after the horse ran away. Plop! 7 patrol envoys were silently licking their wounds in the prison. Suddenly, a figure was thrown in. Then, his nose and eyes were crooked, and he was foaming at the mouth. Afternoon Messenger. He's in trouble too. The fastest among the 12 was also thrown into prison. Moreover, from the looks of it, he seemed to have become an idiot from exhaustion from running. Yin Hu and the others immediately broke down. It's over. Boss and the others are probably coming in too. The 7 patrol envoys despaired. The main reason was that Jun Changxiao sent his companions in too quickly. On average, he sent one every 7 or 8 days. Of course, sneak attacks were a factor, but there was no denying that he was powerful. It's fine, Yin Hu said. There's still the elusive morning messenger. He'll definitely be able to defend the dignity of the 12 patrol envoys. Once he said that, everyone immediately regained their confidence. Among the 12 patrol envoys, the strongest was undoubtedly the 5th-ranked morning messenger. Moreover, he rarely showed himself. Apart from the fortress master, no one else had even seen his face. He was extremely mysterious. Moreover, Messenger Z had once said that the 5th brother's strength was above everyone else. Yin Hu did not agree, so during a gathering, he challenged him while he was drunk. In the end, he lost after a few moves. Before Messenger Z left, he said something that still made Yin Hu break down when he thought about it. Against a guy like you who only knows how to use brute force, I've only used half of my strength. Ugly Messenger, who prided himself on his strong defense and thick skin, had also fought with Morning Messenger Z. In the end, he was bedridden for 3 to 5 years before he recovered. For a long time, the other patrol envoys talked about him, wondering if he was at the upper level of the void-piercing realm. Morning Messenger. Everyone prayed in their hearts. Our dignity depends on you. Plop. A few days later, Ugly Messenger, who was known to be the most resilient of the 12 patrol envoys, was thrown into prison. There was not a single part of his body that was unharmed. It was clear that no matter how thick his skin was, he could not withstand Jun Changxiao's brutality. Yin Hu and the other side. After a while, the shifty-eyed boss was also thrown in. He was beaten so badly that his eyes were almost narrowed into slits. If the brothers were not bound by ropes, they would have hugged each other and wailed. In just a few months, 10 of the 12 patrol envoys had been captured by Jun Changxiao, leaving only Messenger Mao and Morning Messenger. It was a godlike speed, and he did not treat the middle level of the void-piercing realm as human beings. There was no other way. When the protagonist was weak, they could enjoy limitless glory. Once the protagonist had cheated, they would eventually be reduced to cannon fodder. It all depended on his mood, and whether or not he would give them enough scenes at the end of filming. Messenger Z, Ugly Messenger, and the others could choose not to give them. But there was one person who had to give them, and that was Messenger Mao. Because Jun Changxiao had already found him, the expression on his face gradually twisted. Little brother, are you attracted by my beauty? Little brother, you're so muscular. Jun Changxiao had been trying hard to control his emotions. However, every time he saw a woman with a perfect figure and a perfect face, and the words she said were extremely coarse and masculine, he could not help but roar. Qin Linran, I've wronged you. You're a real man. Chapter 1298. Qin Linran, who claimed to be the most handsome man in the mortal world, although his skin was very white, and he looked very feminine. At least he had obvious male characteristics. Therefore, one could say that he was beautiful and good-looking, but not a woman. Mao Shi was different. This was definitely a woman without a doubt. She had all the advantages of a woman, and could be described as perfect. Even Jun Changxiao, who had faced blindness, was secretly surprised when he saw Mao Shi for the first time. What a beautiful girl! Lu Qianqian, Shi Jingxian, and Rose Queen were all top-notch beauties, but this guy didn't comment on them. It could be seen how perfect Mao Shi's appearance was. But when he opened his mouth, Jun Changxiao stood in place, as if he was struck by lightning. All kinds of thoughts instantly appeared in his mind before he finally blurted out, "Fuck crossdresser, not just crossdressing." It was hard to tell the gender. Jun Changxiao felt goosebumps rise all over his body, and his scalp felt like it was about to explode when he heard that masculine voice calling him little brother. Little brother. Mao Shi walked over and smiled sweetly. "Come back to Starry Sky Fortress with me, okay? Fuck hashtag." Jun Changxiao really couldn't bear it anymore, and directly threw a punch. Swish. Mao Shi dodged and pretended to be wronged. "Little brother, you're so fierce." As soon as his voice fell, two fluffy rabbit ears grew out of thin air. He pouted and said, "I'm so cute, can you bear to hit me?" Puff. Jun Changxiao spat out a mouthful of blood. This was definitely not from being hit. It was definitely from the shock. Sure enough, to defeat Go Sheng, normal martial arts wouldn't work. He had to use an unconventional method. The extremely cute and beautiful Mao Shi in front of him, with a masculine voice, brought a lot of damage to his spirit. He could use this as a reference for future villains. Huff, huff. In an instant, Jun Changxiao's body emitted a terrifying aura. His whole person seemed to have turned into a demon from hell. He said in a cold voice, "Today, I will let you understand whether you are a man or a woman." Mao Shi's face changed slightly. This guy is very strong. Scarlet Heaven Raging Flame Slash. Jun Changxiao roared angrily. Both of his hands were covered in blazing flames. Then, he condensed a seal that seemed to be able to tear apart the universe. Under the influence of rage, and the support of the fire spirit, this fire-type martial skill instantly exploded with a terrifying might. Mao Shi's beautiful face turned pale. Then with a bang, she drilled into the void. This was his special supernatural power, a crafty rabbit with 3 burrows. It was similar to the Noon Emissary's spiritual aura transforming into a horse. It could save his life, and escape at a critical moment. Hiss hiss hiss. The Scarlet Heaven's Raging Flame Slash tore through space, but the flames that remained in the universe emitted an extremely intense heat, as if they could incinerate everything. Jun Changxiao frowned, and released his powerful spiritual senses. Soon, he found Mao Shi in the distance, and chased after him at full speed. Not good. That guy is here again. Mao Shi's face changed drastically. Then with a bang, he disappeared again and reappeared in another area. It was more magical than traveling through space. However, in the face of the powerful Jun Changxiao, no matter how he moved, he could not escape. After a period of chasing, his flaws were discovered. No matter where he ran, he would appear at 3 fixed points. Guard him. Yes, Dad. Xiaohua and Little Xia were summoned, and then squatted at 2 points respectively. Goshen continued to chase. Bang! Mao Shi disappeared again. When he came out of another cave, he was blocked by Xiaohua. So, he could only go to another cave, and then he was blocked by Little Xia again. Huff huff. Huff huff huff. Half an hour later, the female patrol envoy put her hand on her chest and breathed rapidly. Her forehead was covered with sweat and she said, I can't run anymore. Boom. 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 Jun Changxiao and the 2 infant spirits surrounded her, and began to use extremely inhumane violence. It was so terrifying that it made one's hair stand on end. If a passerby saw this, they would definitely shout to stop them. Let go of that girl. Plop. Mao Shi was thrown into the 9th layer of hell. His miserable appearance made Yin Hu and the others twitch their mouths. After a short silence, they all said in unison, "That felt good." Jun Changxiao could not stand such a cross-dressing boss, and neither could they. However, they were colleagues, and they were too embarrassed to fight because of their relationship. Now that they saw Mao Shi being abused to look like a man, they almost clapped and cheered. Zishir sighed and said, "Only Chen Shi is left." Boss. Yin Hu said, Fifth brother should be fine, right? I hope so, Zisher said. However, just as they were talking, Jun Changxiao, who was searching for treasures in Mao Shi's warship, suddenly stopped and turned to look at the bow of the ship. That was because there was a masked man who seemed to be in the clouds. Commandery Governor Yin? Guo Xing blurted out. The man trembled slightly and said calmly, "You've got the wrong person." Jun Changxiao's forehead was filled with black lines. Brother, apart from the mask covering your face, you're wearing a blue robe, white hair, and a wine gourd at your waist. Isn't that the symbol of Commandery Governor Yin He of Azure Sun County? Since you've chosen to hide your face, you should at least change your voice. Commandery Governor Yin. Jun Changxiao was speechless. Stop joking. The man was silent for a while. Then he took off his mask and laughed. Ha ha ha, you saw through me. Sure enough, after revealing his face, it was the elusive Commandery Governor Yin He of Azure Sun County. His face was extremely red, and it was obvious that he had drunk too much. Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched. Was this guy deliberately testing his memory and eyesight, or was he testing his IQ? Yin He said in surprise. I suddenly appeared in the universe in front of you. Why aren't you surprised at all? Because you're an expert, Jun Changxiao said. That's why I'm not surprised. Actually, when he confirmed Yin He's identity, he was quite surprised. After all, to travel in the universe without a warship, one must have the strength of a lower void-piercing realm cultivator. However, when he recalled that he had used the time reversal technique to go back 20 years and saw Yin He at the training ground, and that he was the one who sent him to Sect Master Wang, he immediately realized that this person was not simple. Haha. Yin He raised his wine gourd and took a sip. I was right. In just 10 years, you've developed a small sect into the strongest sect. You, Jun Changxiao said seriously, who is it? Since he had the strength of a void-piercing realm cultivator, the so-called Yin He was definitely just a cover for his identity in the Falling Star continent. Moreover, if he knew his identity, he might be able to find out whether the original owner had an identity or not. Perhaps he was really cockroach? Jun Patriarch. The drunkenness in Yin He's eyes suddenly faded, and he said seriously, I'm one of the 12 patrol envoys of the Starry Sky Fortress. You're the morning envoy. Jun Changxiao was shocked this time. Chapter 1299. 11 of the 12 patrol envoys were captured, leaving only the last envoy. However, County Chief Yin, who suddenly appeared, claimed that he was the envoy. This surprised Jun Changxiao. You might be surprised. Yin He took out the waist tag that represented a patrol envoy and said, but that's the truth. Jun Changxiao took a few steps back to keep a distance from him. He said helplessly, so we're enemies. Sigh. Yin He took a sip of wine and said bitterly, I didn't expect that the culprit who led the main culprit to break out of prison would be the child I sent to the Iron Bone. Why did you send me to sect leader Wang's sect? Jun Chang asked with a smile. Yin He said, because I thought you'd be great in the future. Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched. If he had not transmigrated, he might have believed it. However, the original owner was smashed to death by a plaque in the middle of the night. What did he mean by great in the future? It can't be that simple, right? Jun Changxiao said. For example, I'm the son of some big shot in the upper realm, a prince who's powerful enough to defy the heavens. Because of political strife or defying the heavens, I was forced to be escorted to the mortal realm by you? Yin He rolled his eyes and said, what kind of nonsense is this? It's not. Let's put it simply. When I was traveling through the major realms, I accidentally found out that you were a promising child who could be trained. So, I brought you to the nearest Iron Bone and handed you to sect leader Wang. Bullshit. You're lying. Jun Changxiao roared. My father must be the emperor of the upper realm. He can do whatever he wants. My mother must be the empress of the upper realm. She's blessed by the world and worshipped by all. I'm the second generation of the emperor. You and sect leader Wang are my servants. The system was speechless. Do you have to arrange an awesome identity for yourself to be worthy of this shameless person? Yin He looked at him, as if he was looking at an idiot. However, he quickly changed the topic and said, The 11 missing patrol envoys should have all been taken care of by you, right? That's right, Jun Changshao said indifferently. Yunhe said, the 12 patrol envoys represent the interstellar fortress, and the interstellar fortress represents the upper realm. What you are doing is openly going against the heavenly Tao. Quickly release them, and follow me to the fortress to accept your punishment. Shwa. He stood up and tore off his blue robe. Swish, swish. A brand new patrol envoy uniform and cloak appeared. His originally slovenly appearance suddenly became abnormally serious. Even his disheveled white hair was combed back, as if it had been licked by a dog. Previously, Yunhe gave off a cynical vibe, but now he gave off a righteous vibe. The contrast was too great. The system roared. This disguise speed must be a cheat. You want to take me back? Jun Changshao asked. Yunhe said, it's my duty. What if I don't? I hope you can cooperate. I'm sorry. Jun Changshao shook his head and said, I really can't. Not only would he not go to the stronghold to accept his punishment, but he would also eliminate anyone who stood in the way of his ascension, even if that person was the Azure Sun County's county governor, who was one level higher than him. Child, Yunhe said, do we have to make it so that we can't back down? I have no choice. Jun Changshao said, life is forcing me. The interstellar fortress would be frantically searching for him if he was found to be sneaking into the upper realm. He had no choice but to tie the soul bomb to himself. Therefore, even if the person in front of him had helped him before, he could only apologize. Sigh. Yunhe shook his head and said, reality is cruel. Come. A heavy aura appeared around him and said, let me see how much the child who peed in the wind has grown. I don't want to fight you, Jun Changshao said as he fully opened his realm. Yunhe's realm was even more unrestrained than his. He said, I don't want to fight you either, but everyone has their own principles, so this battle between us is unavoidable. The system roared. I don't see any signs of you not wanting to fight at all. You're stronger than the other patrol envoys. Jun Changshao channeled power into his fist and said with a serious expression, I'll take this seriously. Come. Yunhe waved his hand, and the aura that emanated from him turned into lifelike dragon beasts, which then circled around him, making him look even more majestic. Although he had not made a move yet, from the aura that erupted and the gleam in his eyes, it was obvious that he was stronger than Yin Hu. Jun Changshao's blood boiled. Most of the previous 11 patrol envoys had succeeded in sneak attacks, and had not really tested his strength. Now he could have a good fight. The system said, judging from the aura that both of them are releasing, this battle will take at least 2 chapters to determine the winner. Swoosh. At that moment Jun Changshao rushed towards Yunhe. His powerful aura gathered into a palm, and under the powerful burst of psionic energy, Mao Shi's interstellar warship could not withstand it, and instantly exploded into dust and space. What a pity! It was an expensive means of transportation. Whoosh whoosh. Under the dust in the air, Jun Changshao's powerful palm swept over. Yunhe, on the other hand, remained where he was, and a smile appeared on his face. Boom! There was a sudden explosion, like fireworks rising in the dark night, and the surrounding space was lit up. Whoosh whoosh. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The shockwave gradually dissipated under the strong wind. Jun Changshao was already standing where Yunhe was, and a stunned expression appeared on his face. Yunhe had been sent flying by him, and had sunk into a distant meteorite. That was too weak. Wah! Yunhe spat out blood and said with difficulty, You won. Jun Changshao broke down. The system roared. Isn't this too obvious? You must have used your inner energy to force the blood out. Also, there's no need to hit my face so directly. What was supposed to be an exciting battle ended after just one palm strike. If this were in the theater, the audience would not even have time to eat popcorn. What's the meaning of this? Jun Changshao frowned. Yunhe said casually, It's nothing. I just can't beat you. Jun Changshao was speechless. Yunhe said, Take me away then. I'm only targeting the Starry Sky Fortress, Jun Changshao said. He needed to completely annihilate this organization, but that didn't mean that he had to commit a massacre. I've already gone against the righteousness in my heart, Yunhe said. If you still think of me as the county chief of Qingyang County, you'd better treat them the same. Jun Changshao laughed. You can just say that you're putting on an act. Why do you have to be so tactful? What if I don't understand? Swoosh! Jun Changshao understood what Yunhe meant. With a wave of his hand, he sent Yunhe into the Tianyuan prison pagoda and placed him in the 9th layer of hell. Ga, Yin Hu and the others, who were praying that Envoy Chun would protect the dignity of the patrol envoy, were stunned. When they saw the unique token hanging on Yunhe's waist, they immediately fell into despair. Everyone! Yunhe's face was pale as he said in pain, That guy is too strong. Jun Changshao, who was standing in the surveillance room, saw Yunhe's in such a state and could not help but admire him. That acting skill. It's obvious that he's been through professional training. He did injure Yunhe, but it was a light injury at most. However, it became a serious injury as soon as Yunhe entered the prison. The second envoy and the ugly envoy did not know what was going on. When they saw Envoy Chun, who was the most elusive and had the highest cultivation among the 12 patrol envoys, being beaten so badly, they could not help but wonder how strong that guy was. Could he have reached the upper level of the void-piercing realm? Chapter 1300. Jun Changshao did not know why Yunhe went easy on him, or why he was willing to be locked up in the 9th level of hell. However, the 12 patrol envoys had all been taken care of, leaving only the fortress master. Strange. I've captured all of his subordinates. Why hasn't he done anything? On the way to the fortress, Jun Changshao was thinking. The fact that the emissary had suddenly found him meant that the other party had received the news. The real leader had not appeared, which inevitably made people suspicious. However, Gosheng did not know that the fortress master had no time to spare either. He was having a headache, because the prisoners sent by the upper realm were not obedient at all. They even sought death all day long. Let me go to hell. Boom! Boom! In the 9th level of hell, the tattooed man slammed his head against the defensive barrier again and again until it bled. However, not only did he not die, but he also became more energetic. Gulp. He took out a super strong poison and swallowed it, but it was expelled from his body like a fart. He was completely fine. He had the reincarnation spirit. After death, he could be reborn and even be stronger than before. This seemed very heaven-defying, but it also had a fatal weakness. It was very difficult to die. If that was the case, was it not good to live? Of course it was good to live. However, if he did not die, his realm would be forever limited to a certain realm until his lifespan ran out, and he would never be reincarnated. Throughout the tattooed man's life, as long as he reached a bottleneck of a certain realm, he would seek death. After death, he would be reborn, break through to a higher realm, and then continue to seek death. The whole process was death, resurrection, becoming stronger, death. It was a cycle. In front of this kind of person, Jun Changshao was not worth mentioning. This person was really courting death and daring to die. The fortress master was speechless. Could it be that the upper realm had sent a lunatic? Seeking death all day long like a resentful woman? The more it was so, the more he did not dare to let down his guard. He was afraid that the other party would accidentally break through the barrier and escape. In the past, he had absolute confidence in the fortress's defense system. However, after the prison break, he began to face this problem seriously. Because of the strange tattooed man, the fortress master focused all his attention on the 9th level of hell. That was why Jun Changshao was able to successfully capture the 12 patrol envoys. In the starry skies, the ancient warship sped through space. Jun Changshao pondered on how to deal with the interstellar fortress while studying the heaven and earth fortune array. Because he had reached the level of array emperor, he had a higher understanding of array Dao. However, the array left behind by the old man Taishian was very powerful. It would take some time to fully set it up. Furthermore, could it lead a sect to ascend? With Empress Lingyao's experience, it was confirmed that the array formation could forcibly ascend. However, not only did Jun Changshao have to ascend, he also had to bring his family along with him. The system said, If it doesn't work, then change it. Change it to something that can allow one to ascend. Jun Changxiao rolled his eyes. This was a typical example of someone who did not have a physical body. It did not hurt to speak at all. Of course. The system said. After the system was upgraded to the upper realm version, all aspects have been improved. If the host really can't find a way to ascend, you can ask for help from the advanced merchant shop. It's always full of unknowns and surprises. Can you come out and let me kick you? You can't beat me. This sentence was the most heart-wrenching. It pierced Jun Changxiao's heart until he entered the Starry Sky Stronghold's area. Because he was unable to confirm the strength of the stronghold master, Gosheng did not openly clamor. Instead, he relied on his exquisite disguise to sneak into the city. First, he went to the underground market to buy a lot of medicinal herbs. Then he sat by the window on the first floor of the hotel. In this world, the easiest place to get information was in the hotel dining hall, where crooks mixed in with the honest folk. This was because there would definitely be a lot of big mouths. As expected, a martial artist drank a bowl of wine and said, "A while ago, a ray of light suddenly flashed across the starry sky. Did you guys see it?" "Of course we saw it." The little brother sitting next to him said, "Brother Tong, what exactly is that thing? Just looking at it from afar makes one's heart tremble." The martial artists sitting in the dining hall pricked up their ears. They had all recently arrived at the Starry Sky Stronghold to buy things. On the way, almost all of them had seen that ray of light that seemed to fly in from the void. However, when the drinking man saw that everyone was curious, he proudly kept them in suspense. Ding dong. At this moment, a few high-grade spirit stones landed in front of him. Then a gentle and elegant voice said, "Brother, this meal is on me." Everyone turned around and saw a scholar sitting by the window. If he did not suddenly speak, they would have treated him as heir. How generous. That person grinned. Then, he put the spirit stones in his pocket and said, "As far as I know, before the Starry Sky Stronghold was renamed, rays of light would appear almost every once in a while." "Why is that?" everyone asked. "Because," that person paused and said with a serious expression, "whenever a ray of light appears from the void, it must be from the upper realm." All the martial artists widened their eyes. Could it be that the rumors are true? An old man sitting nearby said in shock, "The 9 levels of hell are used to imprison criminals from the upper realm?" "That's right." That person slammed the table and said, "The ray of light that flew out from the void is most likely a criminal from the upper realm. Right now, it might be imprisoned in the 9 levels of hell that have been renamed the Starry Sky Stronghold." "Is that true? That's a little unbelievable. Criminals from the upper realm are definitely from the upper realm. Can our mortal universe subdue them?" Just as everyone was discussing in disbelief, no one noticed that Jun Changxiao, who had disguised himself as a weak scholar, had left the restaurant and was heading towards the 9 levels of hell. "Criminals from the upper realm? I want to go in and see what's going on." Since Jun Changxiao could come out, he could definitely go in. Therefore, he arrived at the approximate upper level of the 9 levels of hell and began to communicate with the barrier formation. Then he successfully integrated into the first level of hell. It was easier than returning home. "Who is it?" "It's me." "Fuck, that guy is here again." When the prisoners of the first level of hell heard the familiar voice, they were stunned. Jun Changxiao mainly wanted to see the prisoners from the upper realm, so he did not argue with them. After confirming that there was no one on this level, he continued to integrate into the second, third. When he could not find anyone on the 8th level, he guessed, "Locked in the 9th level?" The system was speechless. "There's only 1 level left. Do you still need to guess? If he's locked in the 9th level, it means that he's very dangerous. If I bring him to escape again, will I anger the fortress master to death?" Jun Changxiao thought to himself. Whoosh! While he was thinking, he had already integrated into the barrier formation. It was still the same familiar smell and the same familiar environment. However, as soon as Jun Changxiao appeared, the surrounding lights suddenly turned on. It was so bright that he subconsciously closed his eyes. A cold voice sounded in his ears. "Boy, who are you? How can you enter the 9th level from the 1st level?" After Go Sheng adapted to the strong light, he found a masked man sitting at the brightest spot. He was emitting a strong aura. Judging from his clothes, he was definitely not a prisoner. "You are? The fortress master." For a moment, Jun Changshao pretended to look around blankly and said, "Who am I? Where am I? What am I doing?" The system sharply ridiculed, "You're Go Sheng. You're in the 9 levels of hell. You're preparing to bring a prisoner to escape again. And then you're caught red-handed by the master." Chapter 1301. Jun Changshao, who came to the 9 levels of hell to see the criminals of the upper realm, did not expect to meet the fortress master at the lowest level. From his words, it was not difficult to tell that he already knew when he entered the first level. Nonsense. He had been monitoring the suicidal tattooed man the whole time. You broke through the formation at this juncture. If you were not discovered, you would be blind. The fortress master was surprised. A seemingly ordinary scholar actually came from the first level to the 9th level. If he had not been watching hell the whole time, he probably would not have noticed. Could it be? His eyes suddenly turned cold, and he said, "You're the guy who broke out of prison with the main criminal?" If Jun Changshao came down from the teleportation circle, it would not be a big deal. However, he was worried about being discovered, and deliberately avoided the projection formation. So he chose to break through the formation layer by layer. Therefore he exposed himself. Go Sheng was a little confused. His plan was to lurk in the dark, and find a chance to sneak in a bomb. He did not expect to meet the boss so early. Ha ha ha. At this moment, laughter came from afar. The tattooed man, who was bound by bracelets and ankles, walked out from the darkness. He parted his messy black hair, revealing a face full of blood, and said excitedly, "It seems a little lively." Jun Changshao thought, "This is the upper realm's criminal? He was tortured so miserably. How inhumane. That's what he did. It has nothing to do with my fortress." The fortress master said lightly. "Hee hee." Jun Changshao gave a thought-provoking smile. "Hee hee." The tattooed man laughed weirdly and said, "I think you two are quite strong. Come quickly kill me." Jun Changshao ignored him and looked at the fortress master, saying lightly, "I didn't expect to meet you so soon. If that's the case, yes, I was the one who took the main criminal of the 9 levels of hell away." He admitted it. He laid his cards on the table. They would meet sooner or later anyway. It did not matter if it was earlier or later. The fortress master's eyes turned cold. He was surprised that the weak scholar was the culprit who broke out of prison with the main criminal. What was even more surprising was that he was here again. What? Was he planning to take the other prisoners away, and use this place as an inn? The 9 layers of hell were created by the upper realm, and the prisoners imprisoned there are all heinous and unpardonable people. You took them out of prison without permission, and your sin is eliminated. Today, the fortress master stood up, and a vigorous aura erupted. Executing him on the spot was equivalent to a death sentence. This reminded Jun Changshao of the humiliation he had suffered when he was punished by the upper realm on the battlefield. Anger surged in his heart, and he said angrily, "Do you really think you're the ruler of the mortal world? You can control the life and death of others at will, and determine whether others are good or evil." Suddenly, a violent shockwave came from the infernal realm, and quickly spread in all directions, madly attacking the spatial barrier, causing it to tremble violently. The fortress master. Only a qualified boss would not bicker with the main character when they were about to fight. But he didn't hit Jun Changshao's body. Instead, he hit the tattooed man's back. His face was filled with pain and intoxication as he said, "So damn comfortable." The fortress master was speechless. Just as he was about to hit the target, the guy suddenly rushed over and took the hit. He did not use any defense during the whole process. It was as if he was sacrificing himself in a moment of desperation. Do they know each other? I get it now. That guy is not here to break out of prison. He's here to rob me. Jun Changshao was also stunned. Why is the guy with Peppa Pig's tattoo helping me all of a sudden? Kid. The tattooed man grimaced. He wanted to hit you just now. If you're a man, fight back. Nonsense. Swoosh. Jun Changshao took a step, and the psionic energy in his body burst out. He attacked the fortress master with all his might. However, what made him break down was that the tattooed man, who was supposed to go around him, suddenly stood in his way. He opened his arms and smiled in relief. Are you crazy? Boom! The tattooed man, who took Jun Changshao's punch head-on, was suddenly blasted away. He slammed into the wall and fell to the ground like mud. There was still a smile on his painful and hideous face. He had to admit that criminals from the upper realm were strong. Although he was attacked twice, he could tell that he was injured from his expression. His body was completely fine. His endurance was probably much higher than Z's. Die. The stronghold master took a big step forward, and a powerful aura emanated from his body. It was like a raging wave pressing over. Jun Changshao was not to be outdone. He opened up his realm and pounced like a ferocious tiger. Boom boom boom. Boom boom boom. In an instant, thunderous explosions came from the 9th level of hell. All kinds of energy and special effects exploded and burned wildly. The fortress master was indeed strong. It could be seen from the short exchange that his strength was far above the 12 patrol ambassadors. Jun Changshao was not at a disadvantage when facing him head-on, but it was difficult for him to gain the upper hand. However, in this kind of high-budget and high-quality battle, there was a tattooed man who did not fit the situation. He looked like he was about to die, and was sprawled on the ground like mud. However, he always stood up abruptly and rushed forward like a mad dog to block the attacks for the two of them. Jun Changshao and the fortress master swore that ever since they started practicing martial arts, they had experienced countless fierce battles. However, they had never seen such a weirdo. Moreover, the most annoying thing was that if they tried to avoid him, they would be attacked by him instead. If you don't hit me, I'll hit you, the tattooed man roared. Therefore, the battle that was originally between two people suddenly turned into a 3-man melee. The more they fought, the more intense the fight became. The frame dropped more and more, until it was stuck on a PowerPoint presentation. You're fucking crazy. Jun Changshao, who was kicked by the tattooed man, roared angrily. He then reached out and hit the fortress master's face. The latter kicked the tattooed man's crotch angrily. The three of them wrestled and fought. It was impossible to tell who was hitting who. The scene was very uncomfortable. Of course, no matter how intense the battle was, there would be a break in the middle. Therefore, after an hour of fighting, the three of them were separated by dozens of feet, maintaining a triangular formation. They then put their hands on their knees, sweating profusely and breathing rapidly. Damn it. The fortress master's face was full of anger. Wait a minute. Where's my mask? It was not until this moment that he realized that his mask had been knocked off by someone in the melee. Ha ha ha. The tattooed man could not help but laugh. Jun Changshao, who had undergone strict professional training, had been holding back. In the end, he could not help but squat down and cover his face as he laughed. The fortress master was a man. His face was very round. His eyes were big and small. His eyebrows were high and low. His nose was like a garlic, and his mouth was like 2 sausages. When these facial features were gathered together, it was really full of laughter and joy. Therefore, this incident told us that a mysterious person, who did not dare to reveal her true face, and made it hard for others to distinguish her gender, was not necessarily a beautiful woman. It was possible that she did not dare to face reality because of her appearance. Kacha. Seeing Jun Changshao squatting on the ground and laughing, and seeing the tattooed guy lying on the ground and laughing, the eyes of the 2 stronghold masters flashed with endless anger. They then spread out their hands and roared in anger. Immeasurable Mahayana seal. Whoosh. Whoosh. Suddenly, a terrifying airwave gathered above the prison, and then turned into a huge palm print. It pressed down on the 2 people who could not stop laughing. This guy actually knows the secret method of the boundary hall. The tattooed man was stunned. Then he laughed wildly and said, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. Ha ha ha. Boom. Suddenly, the whole 9th floor of hell shook violently. The defensive enchantment around them trembled violently. It seemed that it was about to break, but in the end, it withstood the raging energy. This defensive system was really not for show. Chapter 1302. Whoosh Whoosh. When the fortress master used a martial technique called immeasurable Mahayana seal, his entire body seemed to have been sucked dry, and he almost collapsed to the ground. Although the supreme secret technique from the upper realm hall was suitable for the lower realm after being greatly modified, it was still difficult to use. However, it was very powerful. The tattooed man, who had dealt with the realm hall before, had seen it before. Now that he was imprisoned in the lower realm, his strength had been greatly reduced, and he would definitely die if he took this move head-on. Therefore, when the palm imprint was about to descend upon him, he had already spread out his arms and welcomed death with a smile on his face. Until his smile gradually froze, he saw Jun Changxiao, who was wearing the great sage set, receive the palm imprint and roared, "You want to kill me?" Boom! With the support of the set, the power exploded to the extreme, and the palm print that seemed to come from the upper realm was suddenly pushed up and shattered in midair, turning into light pieces that filled the sky. The tattooed man was stunned. During the time when he was imprisoned in hell, he had tried many ways to commit suicide, but they were all useless. Only this time, when the other party used the secret technique of the realm hall, did he experience the long-lost feeling of dying. In the end, it was broken by that kid. Ah! The tattooed man held his head and roared, "You ruined my plans!" Boom! Suddenly, Jun Changxiao appeared in front of him, and with an extremely elegant backflipping kick, he directly kicked the man's right face and sent him flying. He said, "If you're crazy, go take medicine. Don't stay here and let me deal with you." Wah! The tattooed man crashed into the wall and then spat out blood. His eyes were burning as he said, "This guy is so strong. He will definitely kill me." After kicking away this troublesome guy, Jun Changxiao turned around and said arrogantly like a great sage, "I will break your damn fortress today and destroy all the so-called laws." The fortress master's expression became extremely ugly. The secret technique of the realm hall that he used was actually easily caught by him. This kid's strength was probably at the peak of the middle realm. Needless to say, he guessed right. Jun Changxiao, who had advanced from the sword and martial emperors, was indeed at the peak of the middle realm, so the 12 patrol envoys were all crushed. "Kid," the fortress master said coldly, "reflect here first." Shoo! As soon as he finished speaking, he disappeared into thin air. "Run!" Jun Changxiao waved his cloak and was about to give chase. But before he could even take a step, an explosive force suddenly surged out from behind him. Hence, he turned around and brandished his fists to meet it. Boom, ding, ding, dang. Under the violent collision of power, Go Sheng was forced back more than 10 steps before he could stabilize his body with great difficulty. His eyes were filled with disbelief. "Brat!" The tattooed man lowered his shoulders, bent his waist and lowered his head. The chain was stuck to the ground, and his voice seemed to come from his throat. "Your opponent is me." Jun Changxiao frowned. How could this guy, who had been attacked by both himself and the fortress master during the chaotic battle, still be able to stand up? Why did he look completely fine? "Don't forget," the system reminded, "this is a wanted criminal from the upper realm." Jun Changxiao thought of the black and white double ghosts. These two brothers came from the upper realm, and after he demonized them, they were still fine. Motherfucker! Are all the people from the upper realm so thick-skinned? Brat! The tattooed man dragged the chain and walked over step by step. His eyes shone with the light of love as he said, "You have two choices now. One is to be killed by me, and the other is to kill me. Make your choice." "I'm sorry," Jun Changxiao said indifferently. "I don't want to die." "Very good." When he was about 10 feet away, the tattooed man directly lay on the ground and assumed a sexy sleeping posture. He said, "Then come and kill me. I definitely won't resist." Jun Changxiao's expression became interesting. Letting others kill him? Uncle De had never heard of such a strange request. "Friend." Jun Changxiao clenched his fists and shook his head. His gaze was cold as he said, "You're really despicable." "I'm just as though." The tattooed man hooked his finger and urged, "Come and kill me, I can't wait any longer." A man lying on the ground actually said that he could not wait any longer. This made Jun Changshao furious. He raised his hand and gathered scorching flames. He said angrily, "Then I'll fulfill your wish." Huff huff. The crimson heaven's raging flame slash was unleashed at full power, instantly igniting the temperature of the 9th floor of hell. However, after the explosion, the tattooed man was still fine despite his face being covered in dust. Instead he roared, "Did you not eat? Damn you!" Jun Changshao was unable to restrain his anger. He gathered strength on his fists and legs, and rushed in front of the tattooed man. He began to bombard and stomp wildly. Boom! 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 Without any resistance from the tattooed man, Go Sheng went on a rampage for more than 10 minutes. He used all kinds of weapons, and only stopped when the spiritual energy in the 2 spiritual cores had been depleted by more than half. He was panting heavily. In the camera, the wanted criminal from the upper realm, who only wanted to die, was beaten until he sunk into the ground. He almost looked like a cartoon drawing. He must be dead this time, right? No. No. Just as Jun Changshao was panting, the tattooed man raised his index finger that was sunk into the ground and shook it gently from side to side. It was as if he was telling Jun Changshao, "You can't do it." Boom! Boom! Go Sheng was furious. He raised his foot again and stomped on the tattooed man's face. He scolded, "I've never seen such a despicable person in my life." The system said, "I've seen it before." After all, Jun Changshao was still a human. He had used up a lot of spiritual energy to fight the fortress master and resist the immeasurable Mahayana seal. Therefore, after the frenzied violence, he sat down and breathed heavily to recuperate. The tattooed man was sunk into the deep pit. His entire person was so badly beaten that he could no longer be described as a human. He could be described as a pile of mud. Although the fortress master's martial arts were powerful, he seemed to be an arrow at the end of its flight. He should be recuperating now, Jun Changshao said to himself. I must recover faster than he does. And then the starry fortress. Suddenly his eyes widened. Light spots that looked like fireflies appeared in the prison and gradually gathered in front of the half-dead tattooed man. Then a miracle happened. That guy's damaged skin began to recover slowly until it became glossy and smooth. Fuck. Jun Changshao was shocked. This guy can heal himself. Ka. After his skin was restored to its original state, the tattooed man stood up from the pit and grabbed his head. With a click he straightened it. His eyes rolled a few times and he wanted to cry but had no tears. Why am I still fucking alive? Jun Changshao almost vomited blood. From those few words, he could tell that the tattooed man was very disappointed and depressed. It was as if living in this world was polluting the air with every passing second. Brother! The tattooed man knelt on the ground and bowed. He covered his face and cried, I beg you, kill me. Chapter 1303. The tattooed man who was ravaged half to death actually recovered in such a short period of time. This brought great shock to Jun Changshao. The healing pills in the system could do it, but it was nothing more than a cheat. On the other hand, this guy was lying on the ground and did nothing. He recovered just by absorbing the light of the fireflies. Could it be he met someone of the same profession? Jun Changshao immediately became vigilant. Impossible. The system said, the host has the system, which is absolutely unique in this book. It is absolutely impossible to replicate. Then how did he suddenly recover? Jun Changshao asked. The system considered for a moment and said, maybe he cultivated a martial art that can quickly recover from injuries. In other words, this is a talent? Jun Changshao's eyes lit up. A bold idea rose in his mind. That's right. Win him over and use him as a shield. When he thought of Xiao Ziji carrying a shield and being able to recover from injuries, his combat power would definitely skyrocket. What if he didn't surrender? Simple, get his hands on his martial arts. Thinking of this, Jun Changshao became calm and then asked, why do you want to die? Because. The tattooed man's head drooped even lower. With a pained expression he said, I've been obsessed with martial arts all my life. In the end, my woman ran away with someone else. He wouldn't tell others that he had the reincarnation spirit, and that the more he died, the stronger he became, so he casually made up a lie. He forced himself to make a cuckold. To be able to tell such a lie, he was really a super weirdo. Jun Changshao said sympathetically, "Brother, you're really pitiful." But, after a pause he said, "There are plenty of fish in the sea. Why do you have to fall in love with only one flower? Moreover, if you leave an unsuitable one, you might meet a better one. There's no need to seek death for love." He couldn't let this person die. He had to recruit him or teach him martial arts. "No," the tattooed man said painfully, "my heart is already dead. There's no meaning in living." From every micro-expression on his face and every movement of his body, he must have gone through strict training to have such top-notch acting skills. "Do you really want to die? Only death can free me." Jun Changshao was silent for a moment before he said, "All right, I'll fulfill your wish." A trace of excitement flashed through the tattooed man's eyes. Then, he continued to lie on the ground in a killing posture and said, "Please don't show any mercy to me. If you kill me, you will be doing a good deed." This guy was truly a weirdo. "I have a way to kill you," Jun Changshao said. "But you need to cooperate and relax your mind." Could it be? Could it be? Just as the system was muttering to itself, the tattooed man said without hesitation, "As long as I can die, I'll definitely cooperate to the end." He completely relaxed his mind and soul and disappeared in an instant. Then he appeared in the Tianyuan prison pagoda. He asked in surprise, "What is this place?" "Pa." Suddenly, a light flickered behind him. A sinister little face appeared in front of him and said, "Paradise of Love." "Area." Jun Changshao, who had followed them in, said, "This guy wants to die. I'll leave him to you. Remember, you must torture him to death." "Okay." Aria's eyes were burning, but she said telepathically, "Master, my soul-subduing whip can only purify and whip others. It can't really kill them." "That's right," Jun Changshao said. "Master, I need to let him deeply experience the feeling of wanting to die. Only then can he change his mentality of wanting to die to trying to live on and living on bravely." The system said, "That's so bad." It couldn't be said that. After all, there were people who were determined to die. Jun Changshao was doing a good deed by enlightening them and building up their expectations for a better future. "Oh," Arya suddenly understood and said, "I understand." Jun Changshao was quite reassured by this trainer, so he patted the tattooed man on the shoulder and said, "Brother, I hope to meet a woman in my next life to make up for the grievances I suffered in this life." The tattooed man cupped his hands and said gratefully, "You're a good man. Take care." Jun Changshao left the Tianyuan soul-subduing tower and continued to sit cross-legged in the prison to recuperate. Time was a little tight. He had to recover better than the fortress master, then disperse all the warriors in the city and find a chance to place the bomb. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. As soon as Gosheng left, ropes flew out from the void and instantly tied the tattooed man up in a U-shape. "Hey," he grinned and said, "this way of dying is very innovative." Whoosh, whoosh. Soul-subduing whip, soul-subduing candle, and other tools appeared one by one. Whoosh. Arya tore off her pajamas, revealing her leather clothes, pants, and boots. Then she put on a hat with the word prison engraved on it and pressed it down gently. She said in a queenly manner, "Which way of dying do you choose? Only children make choices." The tattooed man said proudly, "I want all of them." He also saw that they were preparing to torture him, but he didn't care at all. As long as he could die and start over, it didn't matter if he suffered a little before he died. Arya's eyes were filled with astonishment. Since she followed Master, she had personally trained a lot of warriors of various attributes and levels, but she had never met someone who was so eager to be tortured that he even chose the way to play. Could it be that he had some special fetish? "Okay." Arya picked up the soul-suppressing whip and said with a devilish face, "I'll fulfill your wish today. I'll use a method that I've never used before to kill you." "Hurry up." The tattooed man said, "I can't wait." Arya's mouth twitched. This guy really had some special fetish. No wonder he was sent here by Master. Good. From now on, I'll let you experience what it means to be in so much pain that you want to die, and what it means to hover between life and death. Whoosh! Arya suddenly raised the soul-suppressing whip. The power from the soul whip gathered in it, and suddenly it flashed with a dazzling light. The eyes of the Void and the 12 patrolmen, who were curled up at the side, witnessed it. They were so shocked that they broke out in cold sweat. Their scalps were numb, and the soles of their feet were weak. As experienced people, they could determine the strength of the whip from the luster. What was flashing at this moment was definitely something that they had never tried before. According to the classification of the danger level of the 9 levels of hell, it was definitely beyond a slap. The crisp sound of the whip rippled in the prison. All the prisoners had goosebumps when they heard it, and they trembled with fear. The excited expression of the tattooed man who was whipped suddenly froze, and was gradually replaced by a ferocious expression. He gritted his teeth and said, "Again! Slap! Slap!" Arya waved the soul-suppressing whip, and spun it in the air like a dancing goddess. And then she whipped the man crazily. The pain from the soul instantly poured into the sea of consciousness. The expression on the tattooed man's face changed from ferocious to ferocious. He seemed to have turned into a fish placed on the chopping board, and the chef took a knife to remove the fish scales. The pain brought could be said to be all over his body. Slap! 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 After Arya increased the frequency of whipping, the tattooed man finally couldn't bear it anymore, and suddenly screamed like a pig being slaughtered. This level of torture, I can definitely die. Chapter 1304. The Ninth Floor of Hell. Jun Changshao sat cross-legged the whole time. The 5 elements heaven reflection art was running, and the 5 elements rushed in crazily and enveloped him, as if he had turned into a cocoon. After fighting with the 12 patrol agents one by one, although he had consumed some energy, he had never been so exhausted like today, mainly because of the chaotic battle just now. This fortress master doesn't seem to be very strong. His strength is about the same as mine at most. Recalling the fight just now, Jun Changshao calculated in his heart. It's hard to say. The system said. This person seems to be injured. This sentence was a blow to Jun Changshao, and he said, he escaped even though he was injured. Am I such a failure? There's nothing you can do about it. The system said. After all, it's his territory. It rarely comforted the host, but it was more complaining and attacking. That's true. Jun Changshao found a little psychological balance, but he said in surprise, this guy is so strong even when he's not injured. Wouldn't he be even more terrifying if he recovered? No. I have to recover as soon as possible and destroy the fortress first. After a few hours, relying on the powerful 5 elements body and 5 elements heaven reflection art, Jun Changshao's exhausted psionic energy was completely recovered, and his condition reached the peak. How is that guy being trained by Arya? He murmured and merged into the pagoda of prison. Pa pa pa. The sound of whips was endless. Ah, the tattooed man, who was already covered in cuts and bruises, screamed in pain. Great aunt, spare me. I don't want to die. Brother, come and save me, brother. I've thought it through. I'm still young. I don't want to die. Jun Changshao smiled. Reigniting the hope of living for a person who was seeking death filled him with a sense of accomplishment and pride. The eyes of the Void and the 12 patrol agents were curled up in the corner. They witnessed the whole process of Arya training the new prisoner. All kinds of new ways of playing were simply shocking, simply insane. Plop. The ropes were all removed, and the tattooed man collapsed like mud. His legs and hands twitched from time to time, as if he had undergone long-term electric shock treatment. Then, did he still want to die? No. He wanted to live now. After being trained, he suddenly realized that the world was actually so beautiful. After a few hours of all-around love, the tattooed man deeply understood that death was an extremely terrifying thing. Bro, Jun Changshao asked. I heard that you came from the upper bound. Because his soul was still in a state of soreness, the tattooed man spoke weakly. Why were you locked up? The tattooed man was silent. All right, Jun Changshao said. If you don't want to talk, I won't force you. Arya, let him die quickly. The tattooed man widened his eyes. He wasn't like this just now. He was a good person. Please do not insult the word good person. Because Jun Changshao was a person who would do anything to achieve his goals. For example, he ambushed the 12 patrol envoys. Shwa. Shwa. After Arya received the order, all kinds of ropes appeared again. Don't. The tattooed man hurriedly said. I'll talk. I was labeled as a traitor in the upper realm. I violated the rules of the realm hall, so they imprisoned me. Traitor? Jun Changshao asked. What do you mean? The tattooed man said. Traitors are those who refuse to obey the rules of the realm hall and yearn to be unrestrained. Those who are labeled as traitors will do rebellious acts. I see. Jun Changshao looked at him suspiciously and said, your strength should be pretty good in the upper realm. Since they caught you, why didn't they execute you on the spot? Instead, they sent you to the 9 levels of hell in the mortal world? Because, Shwa. The sexy little rope wrapped around him like a snake. This made the conflicted tattooed man hurriedly say, because I have a reincarnation spirit. Every time I die, I become stronger. Reincarnation spirit? Jun Changshao's eyes were filled with surprise. He, who had come into contact with a higher level, naturally knew that this thing was the same as the spirit of the fire soul and the evil spirit. It was a spirit seed born naturally in the universe. Hey, he was in the same line. Jun Changshao rubbed his chin and said, so that's why you want to die and become stronger? No, the tattooed man said. I need to escape from here. In the past he died to become stronger. This time it was to escape. After all, his cultivation was suppressed by the heavenly axiom. He would be trapped forever in a place full of formations. Jun Changshao looked at him and said, I can help you escape from here. The tattooed man immediately became vigilant. You said you would help me die, but in the end, you were tortured to the point that you have a fear of death. You still have the nerve to help me. To tell you the truth, Jun Changshao said seriously, I'm also a traitor. What? The tattooed man looked surprised and said, you're also a traitor? Sigh. Jun Changshao stood up with his hands behind his back and said, have you heard of the sect of all times in the upper realm? The tattooed man thought for a while and said, never heard of it. Not only had he not heard of it, but most martial artists in the upper realm had also not heard of it. Sigh. Jun Changshao let out a long sigh and said, back then, my eternal sect was like the sun in the sky in the upper world. Our might shook the world. Was it because we offended the world hall that all information related to it was sealed? Crack. He clenched his fists and his anger completely exploded. He said, when I ascend to the upper realm, I will definitely destroy the realm hall. The hatred and anger expressed in his eyes and body language could be said to be perfect. The tattooed man could not help but think. So this guy hates the realm hall as much as I do. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Brother, the tattooed man said seriously, can you really get me out? Kid, Jun Changshao said indifferently. I've already lived for 16,000 years. Do you think brother is appropriate? It is, the tattooed man said, because I've lived for 35,246 years. It was obvious that he was not bragging. Of course, his age was not a lifetime, but a combination of several lifetimes. For example, he broke through the void-piercing realm at 1,000 years old, and then couldn't go up no matter what. He directly sought death and reincarnated again, continuing the cycle. Jun Changshao's mouth twitched slightly. He muttered in his heart, if I knew, I would have said that I've lived for 108,000 years. Age is not important. He turned around and said seriously, what's important is that we acknowledge each other. Fuck. The system said, you're not bragging about your age, and you're already changing your style. This is really Go Sheng. Arya stood beside her master with a harmless smile on her face. The tattooed man glanced at her, and immediately made the right choice. He clasped his fists and said, "Age is indeed not important. I acknowledge you very much, so from now on, you're my big brother." In that case, Jun Changxiao waved his hand and said, "Brother, please fill in this entry form." Just like that, the system broke down. Anyone with a brain would definitely not agree. He was not instantly slapped in the face, because the tattooed man glanced at the entry form and clasped his fists and said sincerely, "Big brother, I want to go out. You can't just let me join the sect just like that. In any case, you have to show some sincerity. For example, help me escape from this incomparably dark place first. Let's go out." Xiao. The two appeared in the 9th layer of hell. Jun Changxiao's spiritual sense began to spy on the space barrier and began to break the array. He chatted casually. "Brother, since you obtained the reincarnation spirit, how many times have you reincarnated?" 165 times. "Damn, you've died so many times." "Sai, there's no other way. I have too many enemies. Sometimes when I'm just born, I'm found before I even have time to cultivate martial arts. I've gone through untold hardships to achieve what I have today. Why can't you die now? Because too strong." Chapter 1305. The 9-floored hell's formation system was very strong. The tattooed man had been banging his head against it for a long time, but it did not break even when his head was bleeding, so he had no hope of escaping. However, when he passed through the formation barrier again and again with Jun Changxiao's help until he appeared outside the prison, the expression on his face became interesting. He was out just like that. He escaped just like that. Wasn't it too easy and casual? It couldn't be helped. People with cheats could do whatever they wanted. "Brother," Jun Changxiao said, "you're free now. Come, fill in the entry form." It was unknown how strong this person was for the time being, but he was extremely resistant to beatings and could heal himself. He was indeed a great talent, so he must be taken in as a shield. Moreover, he came from the upper realm and had a grudge against the realm hall, which was equivalent to an information source. It would definitely be of great use if he was smuggled up in the future. As for the reincarnation spirit, Jun Changxiao did not have the idea of taking it by force. After all, it would be a little extreme to become stronger after death, and it would be a waste of time. The tattooed man did not sign the entry form. He raised his hand and said, "Brother, can you help me remove the bracelet and anklet? This isn't sea stone. Can't you break it yourself?" Jun Changxiao asked. "I can't," the tattooed man said bitterly. "This is a shackle made by the realm hall with spirit seal stone. Not only does it have the effect of suppressing psionic power, but there are also many formations sealed on it." "Is that so?" Jun Changxiao released his soul power, and just as it merged with the bracelet and anklet, he suddenly found that there were many formations inside, and the level was also very high. He shook his head and said, "I can't break it for the time being. I'll just put it on for now." He could break it, but the process was troublesome. Go Sheng was also in a hurry to find the fortress master and place the bomb, so he naturally would not waste time. "Then I'll wait until brother breaks the shackle. Then I'll fill in this entry form," said the tattooed man. Jun Changxiao thought to himself, as expected of a person who has lived for hundreds of lifetimes. "Fine," he said, "let's go, let's fight." The tattooed man's eyes suddenly lit up. Obviously, he was an extremely warlike person. Whoosh! Whoosh! Chua! At this moment, a group of figures flew over from afar. Their cultivations were all in the lower void-piercing realm, and a large number of fully armed soldiers in the city were also rapidly approaching. The last time Jun Changxiao escaped from prison, he had deliberately suppressed it and was able to fool everyone. This time, the stronghold master was prepared, so naturally, the stronghold master was alerted. As for himself, he would not be able to come for the time being, because he had used the martial arts of the Jia Hall. His body had been emptied, and he was currently in a state of recuperation. Kakik, the tattooed man laughed strangely, sending a bunch of trash to their deaths. Although his realm was suppressed by the power of the way of the heavens, and although his limbs were bound by shackles, He still did not take the lower void-piercing realm seriously. Brother, Jun Changshao said, I'll leave these lackeys to you. Shua. As he spoke, he leaped away. You can't leave. More than a dozen lower void-piercing realm powerhouses exploded their cultivation and used all kinds of martial arts to attack. The chains in the tattooed man's hands suddenly waved, but after a series of bangs, the energy from all around was all broken. Then he bent over, covered his face, and laughed strangely. Your opponent is me. Go! One of the leaders shouted angrily. In an instant, dozens of lower void-piercing realm powerhouses rushed over, and more soldiers pressed over. The scene could be described as a wave. The tattooed man, who was fighting alone, was not afraid, but his eyes were burning. He loved to fight, and he loved to fight alone against a group, because there was a sense of accomplishment if he won. If he couldn't win, he would die, and he would be a hero again after 18 years. Not to mention, he, who had the reincarnation spirit, seemed to be very advantageous when fighting with others, whether he won or lost. Boom! Boom! A fierce battle began. The tattooed man waved his chains and killed in the crowd, quite like Zhao Zilong, who entered and left Changban Slope 7 times. What's going on? Someone is fighting in the city. From the aura spreading, it seems that they are going all out. All the martial artists in the city heard the sound of fighting, especially when they felt the strong waves of air, and their expressions instantly became interesting. The fortress had written rules that prohibited fighting inside. A fight of this scale would probably be sentenced to prison. Let's go and take a look. Just as everyone was curious and was about to go to the place where the sound came from, they saw a young man in a black robe flying over, shouting at the top of his voice. The fortress is about to explode. If you don't want to die, leave quickly. Everyone was stunned. About to explode? What a joke! Who didn't know that the defense system of the Starry Sky Fortress was absolutely top-notch, and it was impossible to blow it up? Moreover, the gate of the city was already sealed. Even if they wanted to leave, they couldn't. Boom! Boom! At this moment, there were frequent explosions in the distance. Everyone used their spiritual senses to investigate, and they suddenly widened their eyes, because a tattooed man wearing a prison uniform with bracelets and ankles grabbed the fortress powerhouses and broke through several layers of walls in succession. Then he looked back. There were countless powerhouses and soldiers lying on the ground, dead or half dead. Oh my God! This was not a problem of people fighting in the city. This was a problem of people smashing the Starry Sky Fortress. Boom! Suddenly, there was another explosion, and powerful energy ripples spread wildly, forcing all the martial artists to turn their heads again. And they saw that the tightly shut north gate had been smashed open by the black-robed man. The gate was supported by an array. How did he do it? I'll say it again. Jun Changshao picked up the loudspeaker and said, Anyone in the city, no matter what you are doing, leave this place immediately, or else you will be reduced to ashes together with the Starry Sky Fortress. Boom! Boom! On the other side, the tattooed man was still fighting with many powerhouses, and because of his reckless outburst, more than half of the buildings in the North District collapsed. Dust flew everywhere, and the atmosphere was tense. The martial artists, who initially thought that it was just a fight, immediately realized the seriousness of the problem, and so they all decided to leave. They were not worried about the fortress exploding, but they were worried about being affected by the battle. Ha ha ha! Finally out! We can finally see the light again. At this moment, from the dust-filled North District, prisoners in prison uniforms walked out, dragging chains, their eyes shining with excitement. Damn! They're all prisoners! Could it be? The prisoners locked in the 9th level of hell have escaped. What are you waiting for? Run! All the martial artists fled toward the North Gate as fast as they could. So fast that it was as if they were in a hurry to be reincarnated. No way, no way, many of these prisoners were unpardonable evildoers. At first, they only thought that there were people fighting in the city, but now they completely understood that this was a prisoner escape, and the fortress was rioting. Big news! Super big news! Quick! Capture them! A general of the stronghold roared angrily. Shwa! Shwa! More soldiers rushed into the North District from the 3 districts. and they fought with the escaped prisoners. At this moment, the stronghold was in a state of chaos. All kinds of energy exploded, forming ripples and rumbling sounds. The martial artists, who came to purchase goods, rushed into the Starry Sky Fortress and flew away from the battlefield until they were far away, and then looked back at the fortress that looked like a lump of iron. What's going on? Why did all the prisoners suddenly escape? They were very confused, but they could only stand in the universe and watch from afar, wondering if the Starry Sky Fortress could suppress this matter. Beep, beep. Suddenly, a crisp sound came from the direction of the fortress. Although the frequency was not fast, it seemed to contain some kind of energy that could penetrate everyone's soul and produce an instinctive and intense feeling of fear. All the cultivators who heard this, regardless of their realms or cultivation bases, were dumbfounded. Something big was going to happen. Chapter 1306. Beep, beep. The crisp sound was transmitted in the universe, and every time it rang, ripples could be seen spreading out from the fortress. The martial artists from various planes couldn't confirm what attribute it was that could shake the universe, but they had a strong premonition that something big was about to happen. This big thing was definitely very big. If they lived in the world that Jun Changshao once lived in, they would immediately understand that the rhythmic beep didn't come from taxis, but from the countdown after the bomb was activated. That's right. The first-generation soul bomb that had been stored in the spatial ring for 10 years was activated and placed in the main hall that represented the fortress authority. Remaining time 59 minutes and 39 seconds. Kakik. After it was done, Jun Changshao sat on the fortress master's seat, covered his face and shook his shoulders as he laughed weirdly. Finally, the bomb was placed down as he wished. If someone who didn't know what was going on saw this, they might think that this guy was a villain? Ho-ho. Ho-ho. At this moment, two middle-level void-piercing realm old men suddenly rushed in from outside the main hall and said angrily, "Trespassing the main hall is unforgivable." Although these two brothers were quite strong, they were still far from the 12 patrol envoys. Thus, Jun Changshao turned around, gathered spiritual energy in his fist, and punched them out directly. 1 versus 2 amazing. Shwa. Jun Changshao waved his hand, and the array flags that were inserted in advance flashed, connecting layers of barriers that completely covered the main hall. Since the bomb was placed, it had to be blown up, so no one was allowed to dismantle it. Beep, beep. However, even with layers of barriers, the countdown sound could still be transmitted, forming ripples that rippled in the fortress and even the universe, bringing fear to the martial artists who heard it. To be honest, the sound seemed to come from the deepest hell of the universe, causing people to unconsciously feel a sense of danger and fear. Go! Leave this place quickly. The residents in the east, west, and south districts panicked and scrambled to escape like refugees. For a moment in the fortress area, countless battleships dragged gorgeous lights as they flew at high speed. The scene could only be described as shocking. Kill! Kill! In the North District, the prisoners who managed to escape were still fighting with the Starry Sky Fortress. Perhaps due to their intense anger, they fought without regard for their lives. Fortunately, the main culprit escaped in advance, or else the situation would be even worse. Of course, if Jun Changshao did not deal with the 12 patrol envoys, it would be easy for them to step in and suppress them. As the only two middle-level void-piercing realm powerhouses on the stronghold side, at this moment, they didn't have the mind to think about the prisoners. After stabilizing their bodies with difficulty, they looked coldly at the main hall shrouded by the array. The group of prisoners was nothing to be afraid of. The real danger was the black-robed young man, especially the beeping sound. Ta, ta. Jun Changshao passed through the light barrier and stood proudly in front of the stairs. He didn't release his cultivation base, but that powerful aura could only be described with the word tyrannical. Brat, one of the stronghold's experts said angrily. The Starry Sky stronghold represents the higher realm. If you go against it, you are Don't fucking talk about the upper realm. And don't fucking talk about the upper realm. I'm going to blow up the starry sky fortress today. Even Jesus won't be able to keep it. I'm telling you. Jun Changshao said coldly. The two strongholds experts looked at each other and quickly came to an agreement. They released all their cultivation base and directly suppressed him. They had roughly guessed from Jun Changshao's words that the strange thing placed in the main hall might cause a big explosion. The most important thing now was to deal with the other party, break the array, and take it away. Boom! Boom! However, all kinds of energy came pressing over. Suddenly, a tattooed man jumped out from afar. Not only did he take all the energy, he even grinned and said, "You guys are so weak. I'll leave them to you." Jun Changshao said, "I'll go take a look around." He had no interest in fighting two middle-level void-piercing realm powerhouses, who were far inferior to the patrol envoys. Instead, he wanted to let all the innocent martial artists escape within an hour. From this, it could be seen that Jun Changshao wasn't a good person, but he was definitely not a bad person. He knew the principle of not punishing the innocent. Wait, why did he go to the bank? Why did he go to the medicine shop? Why did he go to the underground black market? No words could change the fact that although Jun Changshao had the intention of letting the innocent martial artists escape, at this moment, he was more concerned about whether he could gain benefits from the chaos. Unfortunately, it didn't go as he wished because the underground black market had become empty. Before the martial artists of the various planes left, they had already taken away all the things they were selling. Fine. Jun Changshao shook his head and said, "Let's go take a look at other places." After leaving the underground black market, he wandered around the various districts. After confirming that there were no martial artists from the various planes, he was relieved. Whoosh! At this moment, a terrifying energy suddenly erupted behind him. A large hand seemed to press down from the void. Boom! Thump thump thump. Jun Changshao crossed his arms and resisted it. Finally, he stood at the end of the street. In the area where he started, the masked stronghold master exploded with a heavy aura. His exposed eyes flashed with intense anger. While he was recuperating, he still paid attention to everything in the city. Naturally, he knew that the main culprit who made the city chaotic and caused the martial artists of the various planes to flee was this guy. Recovered. Jun Changshao grinned and said, the bomb had been successfully placed and activated. It didn't matter even if the main culprit appeared. Brat. The stronghold master said coldly, everything you have done is unforgivable. Today, on behalf of the Realm Hall, I will obliterate you. Buzz. The space trembled slightly. A bow shrouded in seven-colored light appeared out of thin air. Whether it was in terms of aura or momentum, it was incomparable to the Law Enforcement General's Law Enforcement bow. It had to be. This bow was personally given to the first stronghold master by the Realm Hall. Its full name was the Supreme Sanctioned Divine Bow. It was specially used to punish the most vicious and evil people. The system said, this item is very dangerous. Jun Changshao also saw it, but he still had a smile on his face and said, you can't kill me. Whoosh whoosh. Energy enveloped his body. He put on the Great Sage set. He didn't need to use his trump card to deal with the patrol envoy, but he had to be serious when facing this stronghold master. Whoosh whoosh. Whoosh whoosh. The Supreme Sanctioned Divine Bow was still releasing a terrifying aura. The attributes of the surrounding heaven and earth seemed to be conscripted, and then rushed over crazily. Swish. The stronghold master raised his hand, and pulled the bowstring with one hand. The energy that emerged from all directions gathered, and gradually formed a solid arrow. At that moment, the space of the city trembled violently, indicating that this arrow was definitely not ordinary. Boom. Suddenly, there was a sudden sound of thunder in the sky above the starry sky fortress. A bolt of lightning tore through space and struck down. Then it gathered in a whirlpool shape in the arrow. This is the tattooed man who was ravaging two middle-level void-piercing realm cultivators said in surprise. The sanctioned power of the Realm Hall. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. A terrifying aura spread in the city. The surrounding buildings collapsed on a large scale. Even the martial artists who were far away felt it. The shock in their eyes was even more intense. They all retreated in fear. At this moment, the sanction power from the stronghold merged with the beeping sound, forming a strong sense of crisis that was really terrifying. There might even be a big movement at any time. I accept the will of the Lord to punish the sins. The stronghold master shouted coldly. 2 fingers released the bowstring. The arrow that gathered the sanction power flashed out, and instantly dragged out a brilliant light. Whoosh whoosh. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. An arrow shot out, and a fierce wind suddenly rose. Ka 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 ka. The space in the city was stirred to the point of collapse. The collapsed buildings turned into powder in the light. Jun Changshao, who was facing the hurricane, burst out all the spiritual energy in his body. Then he formed layers of thick enchantments in front of him. He said angrily, "My life is in my own hands. Whether I am guilty or not, you don't have the final say." Fuck, the tattooed man exclaimed. Why didn't he dodge? You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.